Ponytails Podcast. Here we go. Hey guys, Andres Gamboa here. Welcome to the Ponytails Podcast. Whoop, whoop. Man, we're well into season 6 now, and I am excited for today's guests because we were just having a blast in the back room, just kind of getting prepared for the show and the sound check. And it's just always so exciting when you have someone who has the voice and the setup and is well prepared. Oh man, I'm super excited. Today with us is Tony Ripley, and I'll give you guys a quick bio on him here in a sec. But a couple of announcements before we get too far, before we get ahead of ourselves. This is stuff you might want to know. If you're listening to this, it's already too late to sign up for Bizzler, so sorry, skipping that. But a big announcement as to what's happening next. Coming soon as to Bizzler 2.0 and where we're going next year. So keep an eye out for that. I did want to point out one thing to you guys. Our store is live. Our merch is live. Go get yourself some Ponytails Podcast gear. So here is how you do it. I'm going to do a quick rundown. If you guys are watching, make sure you're ready for this. You go to the ponytailspodcast.com, theponytailspodcast.com right there on the screen, as you guys can see. You go to our merch section right there. Boom! Look at that hoodie. Got some cool stuff. iPhone cases, coffee mugs, fanny pack, sweatshirt that says units on it, YOUNITS, because remember, you are your units. And if you guys click on these selections, you can actually choose a different color for a lot of these. So we made it available in a variety of different options. So make sure you guys check it out. Go to the ponytailspodcast.com, get yourself some merch. Tell us which is your favorite. Take a picture of it, share it on social media, do whatever you want. At the same time, if you're listening to this, our stable is out. This stable is ready for you to be a part of. So there's 3 different options that you can do. A couple of them are paid for. If you want to support us, of course, you're going to get some perks for supporting us financially. But if you don't want to support, you just want to keep on listening and be a fan and stay in touch with what we're doing, join our newsletter. Shout out to our team has been working really hard to make sure we put this together. Naomi, Heather, and Nick and Amy have all been working really hard for this. So shout out to them. But basically, with your email, we can send you guys updates on who's coming on the show, what to expect, and of course, sign up for the Trot Setter, which means you're going to keep track of units. Every time you share, like, or comment on something, you're going to get units, and then we'll keep track of who has the most units and release it on the Trot Setter. The newsletter is called The Colt, COLT. Of course, everything is horse themed here on our show, but of course, the inside joke is the Colt. So hope you guys enjoyed that for sure. I want to give a big shout out to Will Metscher, our home boy. Will's one of my oldest buddies. One of the reasons I moved to Portland, besides my wife, even though he decided to leave me after I moved here. But he's working with Southwestern Consulting. And what we're doing, guys, instead of just some sort of promotional thing, make it sound all salesy like Billy Mays type of thing, we asked all our jockeys to, if they wanted to, give us some nuggets of wisdom about their industry that you guys might want to know or might be valuable to you. So we will repeat some if you've probably heard some of these before, but this is for people who might be new to the show or who might be just listening to this one episode. So here's a tip from Will Metscher about growth. And he said, we're really good at avoiding things that are hard if we're not intentional about seeing hard things as good and helpful. So embracing the hard things in life, right? Doing one more rep or pushing yourself even 1% more every day prevents you from letting yourself off the hook of growth. So making the choice a habit makes it easier, and you end up overcoming your biggest challenges along the way. So big, solid words of wisdom there from Will Metscher. Love you, brother. You are the best. Next big shout out from Elevate Wellness. So these guys are the guys that we've been using to get prepped for Bizzler, and also that a lot of book people have been using to kind of get themselves into a lot better of shape. A lot of people had questions about fitness, or they weren't sure about nutritional stuff, or they just needed some accountability. Seth Hood and Zane Gallagher, they're the guys at Elevate Wellness, and they're the guys to go to. They've invested over $30,000 into resources and trainings to allow them to help you get answers and get that accountability that you need. So when a lot of people leave their fitness up to just, this is how it is, I just eat and I just go to the gym, it doesn't sometimes work out the best way, but they can help you identify the principles that you need and allow you to elevate your body, your mind, and your life. So if you guys want more details on pricing, let's get in touch with them. we can get you in touch with them for initial consultation. Click on the link on the episode bio for more information. And then another nugget of wisdom from our homie Quintin Roberts. He's awesome. I love you, Quintin. You're the best. Such a funny dude. His episode was hilarious. So he's talking a little bit here about like how to put your mindset, or like the mindset that you need when overcoming challenges. Now, a lot of these tips are also being shared during our derby meetings that are every other Friday. Nick has an awesome forum with all our jockeys, and they share their business and life tips. The jockeys are all our sponsors. They're on our LinkedIn. They're live on our LinkedIn and live on our Facebook every Friday. So here's what Quintin had to say a few meetings ago about overcoming challenges. So you can change the neurochemistry of your brain by reading someone else's thoughts. So his main thing was reading a lot of books. The whole adage in Southwestern where they taught us to read books, learn, be a student of the game. So anyway, big shout out to The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Great book. If you can use other people's thoughts who are a little bit more experienced in whatever path that you're headed, they can shape our thoughts as well, and we can become more resilient or more like them. So that's pretty wise there. Learn from the rest, become a student of the game. Now, to our guests. So here we go. So exciting. So Tony Ripley, like Ripley's Believe It or Not, is how I got told to pronounce it. Tony Ripley. So excited. He sold 7 summers, 10 total. He became a district sales leader. He sold from 1995 all the way to 2004. Pretty much the golden age of Southwestern. If I really had to pick like a time period where Southwestern was really just jamming on all cylinders, besides some things here and there, that's probably, as far as from a production standpoint, those are probably best years to have been in Southwestern in terms of selling lots of books. A lot of legends came out of there, Tony himself included. He sold for JYD. He's a junkyard dog there. And he studied at Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. Currently lives in Woodbury, Minnesota. If you want to get a hold of him, he is a speaker, and you can go to his website, www.standingospeaker.com. His favorite scroll is scroll number 2 or 3. He couldn't pick. So it's either I will greet this day with love in my heart, or I will persist until I succeed, which really, I mean, it's probably most people's favorites. So, can't blame him for that. Pretty solid selection. So without further ado, Tony Ripley, welcome to the show, my good friend.
Andreas, man, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This is an honor. I appreciate it.
I am honored. Are you kidding me? I get to do this only because I was the first person to think about it. Thank you, COVID.
There's something good
Somebody
about
was going to
that
do
too.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. And no, it's been awesome to get a chance to get to know the podcast a little bit more and more. I've listened to a number of episodes since long ago, and you mentioned Naomi a while back. And the way that I met Naomi was super cool. She, as you know, is a go-getter. She is one of those people that will
Yeah.
meet a lot of people and do well with that. I had a chance to PC her on a Sunday one time while she was selling, and it was super cool because I was watching her really explode in one of those COVID summers. And oh man, she had some stories that I'm sure will be great for another time. But yeah, it was cool to get roped in and connected through Naomi because she's a superstar. You had a great team.
Yeah. Big shout out to Naomi Kaufman. She's a beast. Love you lots, girl. She's been the person spearheading our Bizzler movement. And we're slowly but surely getting more people there. I think I'm going to go ahead and announce this. Just while with you on it, so that way you're invited to the next one. I know you couldn't make it to the one here coming up in a few weeks, but we're going to be going to Colombia in October next year. So let's go back to the motherland, my motherland.
Bogota? Where in Colombia?
That's still to be determined. We're still on the planning of that.
Okay.
There's some things that are being tossed around. One of the biggest objections we got about this Bizzler was a couple of things. One, that it was in August. A lot of people who are still in sales are like, this is like my prime time selling season. So we're like, crap, which is okay. And then other was that we're going to Mexico, which it's like, because people are like, we've been to Mexico too many times. So I'm like, oh my gosh, whatever. So in order to cover those objections ahead of time, I'm like, we don't go to Colombia for Sizzler ever.
Yeah, no, I've never been to Colombia, so that'd be awesome. I've been to 27 countries and I've never been to Colombia.
Oh man, you're missing. So this is your chance. This is your chance.
Okay.
The other thing was that, people were saying that it was on a beach. I'm like, well, what if we do like a thing where there's some really cool resorts in the middle of the jungle in Colombia? So maybe something like that. But maybe we go to the beach in Cartagena because you can't beat the beach in Cartagena. It's really pretty much amazing. The food's better. No offense, Mexico, but it is.
That would be
And
extraordinary. Yeah.
yeah, so I think it'd be a really cool vibe. So we've announced it officially on the air now. It is out there. Join us for Bizzler 2.0. It's too late for you to sign up to the first one. But join us for that, Bizzler. Be excited about it. So heck yeah, man. So yeah, I'm glad that you're here. Glad that you're a fan. I'm drinking some tequila. What do you got with you?
Negro Modelo. Yeah, I've got it in a special glass.
Cheers.
That keeps it nice and cold. Cheers.
Oh, nice. Cheers to you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's dive in. As you know, we do no pre-approach in this thing. The whole idea behind this is being organic. And I met you about 20 minutes ago. So let's dive into this thing. Let us know. So you ended in 04. So between 04 and 2022, we got a gap. Feel free to fill in as many details. But what are you up to now, and how did you get here?
Yeah, I mean that's quite a gap. It's interesting. So where I am today and what I'm doing now started back in probably 2000, 2001. And I'm helping people solve this problem. And I think I've heard you talk about this a couple of times before. Andreas, you've talked about how you've got this idea of selling books and they say you could do anything afterwards. But then when you go to run a business afterwards, it's a different story, right?
Yeah,
you've said that before. It's like, you end up, all of the logistical things behind it. And I was finding that there's another problem that a lot of Southwestern people have. And whether you're a great salesperson or a great recruiter, is that they have a challenge becoming a great public speaker. And I was actually the first person that I ever saw fail with public speaking. Can I tell you the story about it?
Absolutely, my man. Sounds like it's gonna be
a wild oh my God, it was such a nightmare. I mean, because I was never an amazing salesperson. I sold about 5,500 units my first summer, but I was a pretty good recruiter and a trainer and an org builder. And it was 2000. So in 1999, I earned the very first Freddie ever. This is the first one that ever was made. And the first one that was ever even awarded. When I had the Freddies for the first time. And it was.
Hold on, we don't have a label for this, so I gotta explain what a Freddie is for those. If you're listening and if this is your first episode, and you don't know what a Freddie is. So basically, at the end of the summers, they would do this like awards banquet, kind of like the Oscars. Would you say it's kind of like the Oscars, right?
Yeah, just like
red
the Oscars.
carpet.
I mean, that's what it looks like an Oscar. Yeah, exactly.
But it's based off the name Fred Landers, who's one of the founding fathers of the current headquarters. Long story short, it's a celebration. And to win a Freddie, you have to be like, it's kind of like winning an Oscar. It's like best actor, best supporting actor. It's like, yeah, there you go. And
there you go. The Oscars
and so you could win it for like being the best DSL, the top first year, the number one experience dealer. You could be the number one. Like there's a variety of categories, and they do it every single time at GRS, which is the Great Recruiter Seminar that we do have an explanation for, and it's on the screen if you guys are going to want to check it out. But anyway, that's an amazing accomplishment to win a Freddie. So to give context for people who they're like, what the hell's a Freddie?
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Well,
so they had at this time it was called field managing. I think they have a different name for it now, but I was field managing, and I had this little organization that grew from like 10,000 to 40,000 units to 90,000 units over 3 summers. And I went back to back from ASL to DSL. And this is all great, but that's not what I remember, because I was in the middle of sales school, my ASL year, and I had this 18-person team with me. And Dan Moore, he comes up to me and says, "Hey, I want you to teach a part. Will you teach a part on pre-approach?" Now, there's 1,000 students at sales school, because that this is like when it was big. There's 1,000 kids in War Memorial, and it's a big deal. And some amazing speakers up right before me. I think it was probably Lee McCroskey. He just spoke. And energy of the crowd was shaking the roof, right? So Lee invites me onto the stage, and I'm going to embarrass myself. This is how bad I was. I do some like WWF like Hulk Hogan thing. And it's horrific. But the crowd they love it. They eat it up. And then I start into my part on pre-approach that I didn't prep because I had a big team and I didn't care about teaching pre-approach, but it was boring. And I got through my 10-minute part in 6 minutes. And then I walk off the stage and I'm like, yeah. And the crowd does this. It's just, it
Oh
went from cheering
God,
to the energy
no.
just died. And then I see Dan Moore backstage. And it's almost like you have to say Dan Moore if you're, who that is, but he's the icon of Southwestern.
Yeah.
You have so much respect for him because he's one of the most positive. He's super polite. He's super motivating. And he gives me this smile backstage. And, it's kind of, like that. And then he pulls me aside and says, thank you for doing that part. And he pulls me in really close. He says, when we have a few minutes, remind me to give you a few tips on public speaking.
Oh no.
It was so brutal. Because like
It's
I
the
said,
nicest way of saying you sucked.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Oh
And so this
God, no.
moment, it like plants this seed in my mind. It's like, I'm going to do everything I can to be a successful speaker. And after I left Southwestern, now, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but I served with a organization called Young Life as an area director. Have you ever heard of Young Life before?
I vaguely.
It's like a
But
Christian
fill
youth
me in, fill me
organization.
in. Yeah.
But it's really towards kids that are like not interested in church. And so I ended up giving 25 persuasive speeches a year for 10 years. And I spoke at camps and banquets, and I really polished the craft. So then in 2013, I was asked to give the keynote address for the first night of GRS, Great Recruiter Seminar. And
Wow.
oh man, it was this absolutely amazing
That's
experience.
crazy.
Yeah. So I moved to Bulgaria in 2015 to 2018. And that was another, we can get into more of that, but it was, I'll tell you, when I came back, it was 2019. There was GRS again. I was building another company within Southwestern, their student exchange program. And
Right.
I was there at GRS kind of PCing some of the kids that I knew from over in Bulgaria and hanging out and everything like that. And then I saw these guys that had made, 25,000 or 50,000 or even like $100,000 in their summers. And then they got up on stage, and I'm not going to name any names with it, but some of them got up on stage and they fell flat. Like, you know what? And I think in a past interview, Lee McCroskey talked about this. He said that there was a top producer and she had a difficult time explaining how she did it, because it was just so natural and that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
so, yeah. And what I found is that when you become a great speaker, and I mean for audiences, whether it's 50 or 100 or 1,000, you learn how to express ideas in a way that a crowd of people can engage. And then you'll move them, you can potentially change their lives. So yeah. Well,
That
I'll
is
tell you
so
this.
cool.
Yeah, the only other thing is after I got back to, and I lived in Nashville, I got a business partner. This guy's name is Daryl Pace. And Daryl, have you heard of Toastmasters International?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So Andres,
It's like that and TED Talks, right? It's like the two major. Yeah.
that's where you're speaking. And this guy, Daryl, he was, it ended up being that I said, hey, let's develop a speaking program online that we could help coach these people that are having a difficult time. And, or maybe they're great salespeople if they haven't learned how to develop their own thoughts that way. And when Daryl said, I love this idea. And then the next year, he becomes one of the top 8 out of 35,000 people in their international speech contest. And I was like, ooh, I picked the right guy to be my partner. And so we created this curriculum over 2 years. And we literally, I'm not kidding you, we're launching it like this week so that, anybody can really up their game in speaking, because you can only be a number 2 Mort Utley. But with training and practice, everyone can be a number 1 themselves that other people want to listen to. So, yeah, I'm a public speaker, and I train on that. That's what I do.
Wow. Okay. So many questions. Okay, this is so cool. This is awesome. Okay. A couple of things that you mentioned that it made me think of, and I have to shout out these people because they're alumni doing really cool things. One, Bulgaria. We'll get into that for sure. I want to get your thoughts on that, and especially we just got them with their European month, so it's kind of a backwards thing where you live there for a while. But Historical Park in Bulgaria. We used to be they used to be our sponsors. We used to be partnered with them, but it's still love what they're doing. If you don't know, go check it out. Literally Google Historical Park in Bulgaria. They're making some amazing stuff. Radoslav Ivanov is the one that's spearheading like the fundraising for that, and it's an incredible project that they're doing,
I
worth
would say
checking out.
Rado and I are
Basically,
close friends. It's amazing.
oh,
Yeah. I'm sorry to
he's
interrupt you.
awesome.
Yeah.
No, you're good. Like it's literally, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like they took all the history of Bulgaria, which is pretty wild because it was like Roman, Greek, and Ottoman, and they kind of walk you through this experience, kind of like an Epcot, I guess, if you will, if
Okay.
you've been to Disney World, like Epcot, where it's like an amazing, like you're diving, but they build buildings, they've built like amazing like structures out of like the same way that they used to do it back then. So it's like as authentic of an experience as you can get historically of all of those empires, and it is bananas, multi-million billion dollar project. And yeah, anyway, go check that out. Two, public speaking is such a fun, like I do stand up, you know this from Roger's episode, but like just this whole idea of teaching people, like what you said, you can only be the number two Mordatli, but you can always be your number one self. That is so good, man. That is so good. So
All right, so I got a question for you. Can I ask a question about stand-up? Do you remember your first time that you ever did stand-up?
Oh,
how was it? What was it like?
Buckle up, dude. Buckle up. I love telling the story. I think I've told it before on the show, but I'm going to tell it to you because it's our conversation. Okay. No, it's our conversation. Who cares?
All right, good.
People can skip this part if they want to. I don't care. It's just between me and you here. Okay. So Brandon Q, who was on our show on the 4th of July episode, if you haven't listened to that episode, people, if you're listening after this one, go check that one out. It was hilarious. But Brandon is a stand-up comedian as well. He went to Second City, took a couple classes, which is like a pretty awesome comedy school. But one time we were just at a get back in Arizona, and he told me he was going to Second City, and I'm like, holy cow, dude, that's pretty crazy. And at this time, I'd always had a thought. I'd actually had done some public speaking up to this point in my life in high school, and I told him, I was like, dude, like if we're ever in the same city, I'll do stand up with you. And he goes, you mean that? I'm like, okay. We shook on it. Cool. He was living in Chicago. Like I was thinking, he starts dating this girl in Lincoln, ends up moving to Omaha, and without telling me, he's like, hey, you remember when you told me like a couple of years ago that you would do stand up if we were in the same area? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Again, I'm thinking he's in Chicago. He goes, did you mean that? I go, yeah, man, absolutely. And he goes, okay, I'm in Omaha. There's an open mic next week. You're coming. You got to prepare 5 minutes, and I'll see you there. I'm like, what? He goes,
you got a week.
I moved to Omaha, so you got a week to prepare something. I go, I don't even know. He goes, listen, just write a speech for 5 minutes. Go through it, write like an 8-minute speech, go through it, cut out all the stuff that probably isn't funny, and then just keep the stuff that's funny, and then just go talk about it. I'm all right, cool. So we get there. It's at a tavern in what's Branson and Omaha. I don't remember what it's exactly called at this point, but anyway, old place. It's shut down since, but it's amazing. It's at 9 o'clock. I'm up and I get up there, and he's prepping me for the emotion, like kind of like a good field manager or like a good student leader. You're supposed to prepare the recruit for the next emotional step, which is most likely going to be you're going to bomb. This is going to be terrible. You're going to get crickets. It's okay. Like we're here to just work on the craft. We're here to just build on this and just get better, right? This isn't the end. This is the beginning, right? People think that doing stand up at an open mic is like the end. No, that's practice. This is shows are the end. And so when he gave me that perspective, I was like, cool. It is what it is. Like whatever happens. I'm happy with whatever happens, and we're gonna just go do this thing. So I get up there. It's a packed room, maybe fits 50 people. And I have this whole bit all about me coming to the United States because that's the only thing I could ever, like when I was doing public speaking, that's what I would speak on, is like my moving here. And again, I'm expecting to bomb. I started out with this joke that was, hey, my name is Andres. It's like Andre, but plural. We might be schizophrenic. We don't really know. That was the joke. That was the opening joke.
That's a good start.
And then people just laughed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see them. Like it was pitch black. There's just these lights on my face, and but they laughed, and I was like, holy shit. And so then I started going into my bit And again, I would wish I could tell you the whole bit killed, but it didn't. It's on YouTube, so I have it on YouTube. But enough, there was a couple bits that people really laughed and clapped at,
That's
and
fantastic.
the rush,
Oh yeah.
the adrenaline
Yeah.
in my vein, like it was. I mean, I've never done cocaine, I've never done heroin,
But
but
it feels like that.
I imagine
Yeah.
that like the reason people go broke for that, I would go broke for that. Like
Right.
that feeling
Right.
to chase it again, it was surreal, Tony. Like
Mm-hmm.
just the
Mm-hmm.
way because oh man, what it meant to me is you guys have bills and fucking like headaches and divorces and children doing all sorts of stuff and strained
Right.
work relationships, whatever. But for those 5 minutes, you forgot.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
was because of me, because I said that I helped you that way. And
Right.
I'm so happy to have helped you that way. And I want to do this again. And that was my first time. And I got off and he gave me a giant high five. He goes like, dude, that was awesome. And I'm like, when's the next one? He goes, every week. And for 3 years, just every week we were going to multiple mics everywhere, all over where we could
That's
find in
fantastic.
Nebraska. Yeah. That's how my first time went. It's
And you're still at it?
I
Are you still every week? You keep the habit?
yes, yes and no. I ended up moving to Portland.
Okay.
And in Portland, it's a little different. Like there's more mics available, but they're super late at night. They're like,
I
there's a
gotcha.
mic here that starts at 11 on
Okay.
a Tuesday or something. I'm like, I can't. And I'm new here, so like I'm at the end, which means I don't go up on stage until like 1. And so I'm
Right.
like, ah man, how do I with the podcast and all that? I'm like, maybe I should just bite the bullet and like not sleep. I wish. Another thing that was kind of off-putting here, and we're in Portland, so it makes sense. Not that it's good or bad, but like I went to a mic one time and the guy was like, all right, 2 rules. You got to keep it at 5 minutes. And number 2 is you can't tell any jokes that could be potentially offensive to anybody in the audience.
Oh gosh.
And
You're
I was
like,
like,
you want me to do comedy?
what?
Yeah,
Like, what
right.
the hell? Knock, knock.
Was
That's
it
all
at
I
a
got.
church? I
Like,
mean, what? Yeah.
like what is this bullshit? So I almost wanted to go out there and be like, oh, I was going to tell this joke about Jews, but never mind. Okay. Okay. Hispanics. I can't tell that one. And just like go through all the jokes I could have told, quote unquote, just for 5 minutes.
That's great.
Um,
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That would have been funny. I would have laughed at that for sure.
I know, but I took the advantage of the mic. I should have done that. That would have been the funniest thing. Or just
Yeah.
tell it all in Spanish. Just completely everything in Spanish for 5 minutes. Just tell jokes in Spanish. Those are my options. I didn't take anyone. But anyway, the point is, so like that's kind of the vibe around here. Is it's kind of a little bit more like not as free to test jokes out.
Sure.
Because that's what
Yeah.
open mics are for. It's
No, I
like, hey,
got
I
you.
don't know if this is funny or not. This could actually be offensive, but I got to try it. And you're the crowd. So here we go. So it's been kind of those two things have kind of made me go, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll come back to this at another point.
So I
But yeah.
actually live near Austin, Texas, and I grew up in Minnesota, but I live near Austin, Texas, and I have yet to get out to Austin to do a comedy. The very first time that I did one was in Hollywood, in West Hollywood, and I was there for kind of a public speaking, book writing seminar called what was it called? It was something to say. Anyway, by the guy named Rob Bell, and it was fantastic. And I was there
Mm.
early, and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm gonna give this a go. I'm gonna show up and just see. And I listened to everybody else, and at the very end, all I had was one joke, really. And then I thought I'm gonna ad lib the rest, and that's not a good idea. That didn't go well.
That's rough, man.
but,
That's
but I mean, it was, I had stories that I could tell, but the joke, because my wife grew up Catholic and we had just got a dog. And so I said, Catholic school is obedient school for your dog. And, you may be seated. Please kneel. You may be seated. And the priest will teach you to sit on command, to speak on command, and they shame you for shitting on the carpet.
That's right. That's
That
right.
was my first joke. And
That's great.
I got like
That's
half
great.
a laugh. It was kind of like delayed. Oh, is that supposed to be funny? And then I was like, ooh, I got to work on this. So
Oh
it's
man.
but here's the thing. You said it ago, and one of your sponsors said, do hard things. And I think that there's nothing
Yeah.
more challenging than standing up in front of
Oh.
people and giving either a speech or, they say that people would rather be in the casket than giving a eulogy because the fear of death is greater than the fear of speaking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, I applaud you for doing that. That's just phenomenal. I got to get back on the horse and get down to Austin
Yeah,
sometime and find some opening nights.
it's just such a crazy craft. Like the idea that I think Louis C.K. said this once. He's like, "There's no reason for you to be here. Like, I'm not inspiring. Like, like what you do. Like, you're a motivational speaker. You talk about entrepreneurship. You talk about all these other things that are valuable, right, to people." He goes, "I'm talking about like dead baby jokes. Like, there's no real reason for you. But then we're here, and I have your money. So like,
Yeah.
I got to come and say things to you now, like, and hope that they're funny." Yeah, that's such a wild thing. Now, for you, question for you, tossing it right back. This is good.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah. There we go.
So now you're doing this. You had this experience. There must have been something though that you liked about public speaking for you to have then taken what Dan said and been like, you know what, I'm going to get better at this. Because some people might have had that experience and said, I'm never again. So did you like the idea of speaking to a crowd to maybe help them believe in themselves or help them change their life or whatever? Or was that something that you kind of found as a collateral, the way that you might find about being a good parent when you go sell books? Like, that was not what you came for, but you found out that you had a passion for this.
Right. Right. No, I mean, well, if I'm real honest, I mean, I grew up pretty insecure. Uh, are you ever insecure, Andres?
Yeah, man. Look at my hair. Are you kidding me? Like,
Right. Yeah. No, thanks for letting me know. Now I know how to pick on you for the rest of the show. Right.
please do. I mean, I have 7 heads sometimes if I shave enough.
No, I'm kidding. See, but I really was insecure. And, some kids, when they're insecure growing up, when they're really young, they show it by being shy, or maybe they develop like a little tick or something like that.
Mhm.
But when I was growing up, like really young, and I was insecure, I'd, like grab my balls.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's hard.
Now,
That's hard
and
to
I
do.
was a soccer player. And now here's the thing. As a soccer player, it's natural to hold your balls when you're playing soccer,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah, especially at the wall.
that's right. Exactly. At the wall. For all of your listeners that don't know what the wall is, that's like if there's a penalty within shooting range, they'll have 3 or 4 people that will stand in a line, and they all put their hands in front of their private parts to
Junk.
kind of
Yeah.
block that area. Because, I mean, now I'm a little kid, with these little kids, but Cristiano Ronaldo can shoot the ball 80 miles an hour, right? So
Yeah.
if you get hit in the nougats at that point, you're doubling over, you're seeing stars and all different types of
You're
things.
not having children. That is a automatic vasectomy. Yeah,
That's right. That's
absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
So I remember the first time that I was in a wall, and I looked at the kid at my left and I looked at the kid at my right, and I'm like, they're just like me. I'm like,
I'm not alone.
I noticed that you're protecting your balls too. And man, how often do you grab your balls? And so the kids
Do
start
you do
moving.
this too in front of public speaking?
Well, of course. And these kids start moving away from me, and then the shooter shoots the ball right in between us and scores the goal. And after that,
Oh, man.
it was horrible. They revoked my license for being a youth soccer referee. I'll wait for that one to land. Yeah. No, I was just so insecure. Here's the thing. I believe that we need to teach our kids, our children, how to handle themselves in the world, to grow up and to deal with things of character. Just this last night. So it was a fun night for me. My wife and my son are out in Dallas. My son is excited about becoming a pilot, and maybe I shouldn't put all that too public and whatnot because he might change in a week or two. But so they're in Dallas trying to figure out what would it be like for him to go to flight school. And he's had some pretty entrepreneurship careers already. At 6 years old, he went and sold donuts door to door. You've heard stories of kids that have done that.
Yeah.
And, he made like $110 in 6 hours because I said, you can either work for me for $3 an hour, or you can go ahead and sell donuts and make whatever profit you want. He's like, I'm in. He had a candle selling business, and anyway, but the long and short is my daughter and I were home this last week, the last 2 days. And at 4:00 in the morning, I wake her up, and just a typical night. And I say, Elise, come on, let's go. We got to go do something fun. 4:00 in the morning. And she says, what are you doing? Now, she just turned 13. And this is kind of a rite of passage that I've done for both my kids. And I I get her in the car. We drive out to this park that's dark and whatnot. She's like, Dad, are you going to bury me? What's going on? And, and I say, no, sweetie, we park the car. I open the door and I walk around to the other side. And I say, get in my seat. And so at 13 years old, I have her go and drive the car slow in the parking lot. And then I go and I talk with her about, okay, so you're 13 now. You're going to have some new responsibilities. This is just a taste, but there's a couple things that I want you to know for when you get older and being mature. And we talked about the three things. And real quick, if anybody has kids and they want to know rite of passage stuff, we just talked about what you say to yourself matters. What you say to other people matters. Be a +1 person and be true to yourself. Don't let fear ever get in the way. And so this, you ask about this public speaking thing, and it's like, yeah, it's a part of my life for my kids. And, do you know, Yuval Noah Harari? Have you ever heard of this guy?
Yes. Why have I heard of this?
He's a historian, philosopher, best-selling author. He has this quote I love. He says, it's likely that most of what you currently learn at school will be irrelevant by the time you're 40 years old. So his best advice is that you focus on personal resilience and emotional intelligence. I mean, doesn't that ring true?
Yeah. And we've heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely.
This book thing might have said something about that here and there.
Well, we're talking about character. And so, okay, I just needed to show this because this is a hidden gem. Have you heard of this book called The Attributes?
No, but I'm going to add it to my list right now, actually. Okay.
Check it out. It's super worthwhile. It's written by a guy named Rich Davini, 25 hidden drivers of optimal performance. And here's the thing that he says: in order to grow in character, you have to invite yourself into new environments that involve challenge, stress, and uncertainty. I mean, shit, if that doesn't, that's selling books all day. That's your childhood. My God, challenge, stress, and uncertainty. And so it's cool. It's that helps to understand what character development is like. So
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
There's so much good nuggets there. Like, for people listening, it's like, do hard things. It's kind of like the overall arching theme, right? Comedies, public speaking, selling books, right? The idea of that doesn't mean do stupid things, for the record. We're not don't do something dumb. It just means do the things that scare you because they're challenging. And I, and this is something we've talked about on the show often with people here, where it's like, a lot of people often say, oh, I went to go sell books because of the money, or I went to go do this because of the travel, but deep down often, and I've asked this, I'm like, was it really that, or was it something else? And often there's, not always, but sometimes, most of the time, a lot of the guests have said, actually, no, it was because it was hard. It was because it was something hard, and I knew it was going to be hard, and something about it just made me go, you know what? I can do this. I believe in myself to do this, whether they had no prior experience in believing in themselves, or they've believed in themselves their entire life. Regardless, they got to this point at this info session. They saw about this program, and they were like, I'm going to do this because it's hard. And it's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's silly if
someone they did.
After doing this says the money is the greatest thing that I got out of doing this. It's like, I don't care if you were top first year or anything like that. You'll 10, 20, 30 years down the road reap the benefits of the experience that you had, the character development. Right now, I'm a business coach, and I like talking with people about personal growth, but sometimes it gets weird. Like, have you ever tried to have a conversation with somebody about personal growth, but they're not exactly ready for it?
Yes.
Yeah. I get like,
oh boy.
I get 3 different responses. Typically, sometimes they'll give me this blank stare, and they're wondering if they can outrun me to their car.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe sometimes I get people that reach into their wallets and they pull out like some old Amway card, and they're like, yeah, I'm all about personal growth. Or then the worst is when you run into the people that are, they're Tony Robbins wannabes, and they try to awaken your giant within. They're like, your ordinary life can be extraordinary, that kind of thing. Yeah. But I'm not you mentioned it before, I'm not a motivational speaker. I love the guy who finishes one summer selling books and becomes that, that motivational speaker. Have you ever met that guy?
Oh
The
my
one summer
gosh.
motivational speaker?
I used to be that guy, probably, honestly.
Well, well, you know what? Me too. And
We
I
all
think
were.
they say things like the only thing standing between you and your dreams is your appearance, your lack of talent, and your personality. But if you follow my 7 steps to have a
Oh
better
man.
you, yeah, that kind of thing, you're still
Yeah.
gonna suck, but I'll have all your money. That's not
Yeah.
me. Yeah. So, but
Honestly, sorry to interrupt. Like,
no, go ahead.
that's the problem I have with like people like Tony Robbins and like
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And again, it's not that he's not good, and I'm not saying that people haven't changed their lives because of something that he said. But to me, it's like, dude, if you are this wise and this amazing, in
Mhm.
my opinion, the people that I have met that are this wise and this amazing that have really impacted my life. And again, maybe I'm
Mhm.
just talking for personal experience, so this take might be complete garbage, but this is just how I feel. Is
Yeah.
those people have learned that wisdom is shared for free, and
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
definitely have made enough money to be charging $900 to go to your freaking event, dude. Like, get over yourself. Charge
Yeah.
$30 because the people that need your help the most, I'm not saying you're not amazing, but the people that need your help the most are charging. I cannot afford to go to your event. So
Yeah, that's so true.
stop.
Yeah.
It's so that's what bothers me. And no, I mean, Tony Robbins, very self-accomplished, amazing guy. I'm sure he's great. I'm sure he has a lot of stuff, but it rubs me the wrong way when it's that kind of stuff where it just feels like this, like, somebody invited me to a Tony Robbins event. I'm like, how much is it? $950 just to get into the event, let alone that it
Yeah.
was in like Florida and I had to fly from Nebraska at the time, right? Which is another $600, right? Or whatever. And then I had to find lodging. It's like, dude, to go listen to this guy talk to change my life, I have to pay $3,000 or whatever,
Right.
right? Or that's too much. Like, literally, just go record yourself, put it on YouTube, and let people watch it. Like, just
Yeah.
shut up. Stop charging me for this. If you're this so amazing that you have enough money, let it go and go do something else. If you want to sell an added course after that, but just you're like holding this carrot in front of these people, and sure, I'm
Yeah.
sure some people are going to listen to it and change their lives. That's amazing, but you're charging $900 for
Well,
this life-changing technique.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
No, I'm with you. I think what amazes me though, and whether it's Tony Robbins or whether it is, the free thing you see on YouTube or someone that learns something from their student manager selling or any other
Yeah.
business and someone really takes it to heart and then they put action to whatever the positive mental attitude or motivational stuff is. That stuff. I mean, you see action, that's when you cement the lessons that are into a person's mind. It like
Yep.
glues because you take action on it. And I don't want to hear a story about what someone has learned. I want to learn
Mm.
from what someone has done.
Done. Oh,
Right?
oh, that's the
Right.
real. That's the real right there. Oh,
But
that's the soundbite.
there's a soundbite. Yeah, but here's the
Golly,
thing.
that's so good.
I think from the youngest age, we should talk about how we're growing up because character growth is just as important for us and our children as their education, and what they learn scholastically. Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
Uh,
I don't think you have
all
kids,
day.
but you know,
No, all day.
it's
All day. Oh, can I tell you? Oh,
yeah, yeah.
can I tell you a story?
Please.
And I don't want to specify who. I was having a conversation recently with someone about, it's a younger person, about the current event right now. The hot topic right now is the trans movement and like in this whole idea of transgender.
Sure,
And I don't want to talk about that specifically, right? Right.
sure.
That's for, people have different opinions on this. And my take on it, one of the questions that this person asked was, so how do we get people's respect? I'm like, I can't speak for that because I can't relate, but I can speak to you as an immigrant. And this is what I had
Uh-huh.
to say. It's like, listen, it's the same thing as everywhere else, whether it's a trans movement or as an immigrant or as a Christian or as a woman, regardless of who you are. The best thing
Hmm.
that you can do to earn someone's respect is, first of all, you treat them with respect, even if they earn it, even if they don't, because like, you outwardly treating people is the only thing that you can control. Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? That's all
yeah.
you can control. But the way I judge people, I don't care if they're black, orange, gay, straight. I don't care. None of that. What
No,
matters to
love
me
them
is
all.
your character.
Sure. Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you a
No, absolutely.
person that is honest? Do you do what you say you're going to do? Can I trust that you will? When you're talking to me, can I trust that you're being truthful and integritous towards me? Are you a person of high integrity from the standpoint of like, I can trust the honor behind your word. Like that's lost in translation. I don't, again, if you could be a straight white male Christian and lie to me, I don't respect that. That's so disrespectful, right? Or you
Mhm.
could be a trans woman from wherever, an immigrant. I don't that but you are a person with honesty and you're a person with high morality. I'm going to respect you because your character is your real identity.
I'll
Yeah, you
drink to
might
that. Yeah.
identify as you might identify as an immigrant, you might identify as a woman, you might identify as a whatever. You might whatever you identify and that's important to you, that's great and I love you for it and I'm glad that you find identity in that thing as a book person, as an entrepreneur, whatever. What is it, right? But none of that matters. Your real identity, who you really are, is your character, like your
Yeah.
actions and the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. And how you do anything is how you do everything, right? That idea of like, hey, I told you I'm going to do this, and so I did it, and I will trust that person. I don't care
Right.
who they
Action
voted
speaks louder than
for,
words. Yeah.
what political party they align themselves with, their
Right.
age, none of that matters. You said this was going to happen, and then that happened. No
Right.
excuses, no, oh, but I almost nothing. None of that mattered. What mattered is you did it because you said you were going to do it, and that's honest.
Yeah.
That is character to
That's
me,
the
right?
key. No, I'm
It's
with you
huge.
100%. You know, and we talk a lot about character development in Southwestern, but here's okay, so this is where it gets really fun. Does
Yeah.
anybody actually measure how someone has grown in their character? No, you can't, right? So
No. Yeah.
no one ever
That's
says they never say, "Hey, look at my rookie. They grew by 86 units of grit and 36
yeah.
units of courage last week." You know?
No. Yeah.
I've got this manager and they've grown by 11 units of empathy over the fall. And I think they're finally ready to recruit. And no, we don't have any way of measuring our character growth until now. So, all right, you've heard the quote before that you can't improve what you don't. Do you know it? You can't
No.
improve what you don't measure. Have you ever
Oh,
heard
of
that
course. Yeah.
before?
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's a old adage. I'm sorry. I
yeah, yeah,
bombed
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, so here's the thing: is one of the things in when I'm speaking, and I'm sorry, this is a shameless plug, but I help people
No.
define their.
Please tell us what you're doing. This
Well,
is if there's ever a place for you to tell us what you're up to and what's great about what you're doing, this is the Ponytails podcast, baby. This
cool,
is it.
cool. I
Go
really
go for it.
appreciate
Go
that.
for it.
Well, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
It was what I love to do is help people define their character attributes and give them tools to measure their growth in character. So here, let me give you a distinction that can help you understand this.
Yeah.
What kind of phone do you have?
This is awesome. iPhone.
iPhone. What type of iPhone? Sorry, what
I think
model?
it's the newest one. I don't remember.
12 or something like that?
I think it's a
13,
13. Is that
28
the
or
newest?
something?
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
I don't get
All
them
right.
very often. Last time I had it was like a 7. So yeah, 13. I think is the latest one.
So this is an iPhone 6. It's as old as I am, and well, no, it's not. It's not that old, but I have an iPhone 6, and here's a differentiation that I like to help people understand between skills and character. And this came from this book, The Attributes. I can't take credit for this, but I thought it was a brilliant thing that kind of helped me understand stuff that I was already talking about. So, if you think about skills, right, you can develop skills through repetition of things. You practice your sales talk, you practice with Mrs. Jones or whatnot, and you get better at the skill of selling. Same thing with riding a bike. You develop those skills, and that would be kind of like if you could relate it to an app on your phone. You know,
Mm.
it's like you can get a new app, like developing a new skill. Like, oh, I got Angry Birds. Now I can push this and it shoots I just age myself. Good God. I got TikTok, that's still old. But you get the idea. Clubhouse never really made it, but I don't, maybe it did and I just don't know.
It should have.
It
It's a cool app, but
yeah,
no,
yeah.
sorry. Sorry for another
Yeah.
time.
No, no, no. Yeah, story for another time. So, but anyway, that would be like skills. Now, character development, a way to think of your character attributes is like thinking about your operating system. You see, because you've got a deeper operating system, or excuse me, probably a stronger operating system with your iPhone 13 than my iPhone 6. And so, therefore, you can power different apps, different things that I couldn't do. And if you develop your character, you're going to be able to develop different skills in a new
Oof.
way that you wouldn't
Oof.
normally be able to do. Does that make sense?
Oof. 100%.
Solid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes. So here's the thing. And here's what Rich Davini says is he says that you develop your character by putting yourself in environments that involve challenge, stress, and uncertainty. So,
Yeah.
I all of the things that he asked me about public speaking, and that was part of me just getting into that so I could go, oh, okay, this is something that would help develop my character by giving me a new challenge. Same thing with moving overseas, that kind of thing was
Yeah.
different ways for new challenges to grow. Yeah. So character attributes, they demonstrate like, your trustworthiness, your resilience, your courage, your learnability, grit. He labels 25. I've actually got a list of 86 character attributes for helping develop people in all different aspects of your
Oh,
life. This guy's he was a Navy SEAL commander. And so he has a specific subset of the way that he develops it. But, just imagine how your capacity for acquiring skills and knowledge will expand if you expand your character.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oof,
So,
that's so good.
yeah, it's because you again, skills through repetition, character attributes have to do with your environment. And so the best thing that people could do is jump into new environments so that they can be exposed to new ways. A lot of times the character attributes that you may have are dormant. Now there's one other thing, and when I talk with groups about this, it has to do with what Southwestern set us up with, which was the emotional and mental preparation so that
Mm.
when you go into expanding your character attributes, you're ready for it and you can have a focus on things. Because if you're not focused, it's willy-nilly as to whether or not you're really going to grow. So here's where it gets exciting. When we grow in our character attributes, we become more able. I mean, it's a simple word, but with a stronger operating system and more memory, if you will, or something like that on our hard drive, that's when you can add more complex apps, and they run smoothly. Like you could run
Right.
iMovie or something on your phone without it being bogged down. And we
Yeah.
all want to do that in life.
And relative, you could run iMovie on one of those mega monster iMacs, and it's still better than even the iPhone 13, which is better than the iPhone 6. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the way that you get to become a mega iMac is that you go do hard things that are uncertain
Mm-hmm.
and just challenges. Oh,
It's the goods,
unbelievable.
man.
This is really great
It's the
stuff. This is so
goods.
good. This is
Yeah.
like gold, gold, gold. Honestly, like these are the kind of conversations I enjoy about the show because I guess in a way exploiting you with your experience. And so
No,
thank
man.
you for sharing this because
It, it
it's
is.
not
It's
my
the
idea.
thing.
That's great content brought to you by Tony Ripley. Thank you so much.
But this is the kind of thing that once you learn to develop content in a way that can be, if you will, profound, the same habits that you had in developing comedy are the same habits that every single book person could have if they to learn how to speak well and to learn how to develop ideas in a way that captures other people's attention and that kind of thing. So that's it. It's yeah, no, it's really something that's simple, but it's a matter of kind of. Have you ever read the book Atomic Habits?
So in the company here at the Ponytails podcast, that's our actually our like our company reading. So
Okay.
that's actually something that we've talked about. That's what we're going to be reading. So not yet, but I'm glad that you brought that up because it's been brought up a bunch of times. So I'm excited about this. It's kind of like a little preview for the team.
Oh,
Here's what
cool.
we can expect. Yeah.
Well, so here's an interesting thing is like you can develop habits that help you to develop even your character. So I want to ask you what you think of this quote. If you don't intentionally give yourself a challenge or stress or uncertainty, life will provide it for you. If you don't intentionally
Ooh.
give yourself challenge, stress, or uncertainty, life will provide it for you, won't it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I would say 100%. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean,
100%.
yeah. And so what ends up happening is there's been a lot of things that I've done in life that were really challenging. Like when we moved 2015, my wife and I sold everything that we owned and we moved to Bulgaria. And
That's
I don't know if you know
crazy.
this, but right. But they speak Bulgarian there. And we knew 15
Shocking.
phrases. Yeah, right. Exactly. So, but what happened is after that kind of challenge, we came and moved back into a pandemic. And that was like, dude, this is cakewalk. What the freaking
Yeah,
pandemic? Who
nothing.
cares? That kind of thing. Just navigating that or overcoming the fear wasn't necessarily that. And I saw a lot of people freaking out, but it was like, let's put this in statistical perspective. And it was a lot easier on our heart and soul to be able to get through that thing. Now, we're real fortunate that we didn't have immediate, family members pass because of it. Negro Modelo is giving me the burps, but
That's all good. That's all
yeah.
good.
But here's the thing: we just need to take these lessons on character development and put it into the forefront of our minds, and we need to look for opportunities to put ourselves and even our kids. For those of your podcast listeners that have kids, and put them in challenging environments where you can give them the proper mindset and just enough skill and knowledge to grow. So that would be my thing.
100%, man. Like, I agree so hard with that. Like, and I've talked about this on the show. I think I did at the 4th of July episode, but when I talked about in my book and like talking about moving here and becoming an immigrant and ended up in Nebraska and all that stuff, like those are things that didn't happen because I chose for them to happen. They just happened to me and we had to react. And, as a kid, I went through a lot of hard stuff relatively to, the typical Nebraska human that was born in Nebraska. Not to, I don't want to belittle anybody else's experience, but relatively, it was more difficult, right? We didn't know the language of the culture. So when I went and sold books, that wasn't one of the things that I always thought was really interesting. My student manager was like, "This is gonna be the hardest thing you've ever done." I'm like, is it though? Because moving from any country to the United States is hard. Like just getting here to this point where we can have this conversation is hard. So I don't expect it to be like, that's actually what gives me confidence, is that I've been through some shit. And this is probably the first time that I get to choose it for me, which is kind of what, to your point, like up to this point in my life, nothing had happened that was my choice. But this is the first time I'm like, hey, someone said, hey, this is hard.
There you go.
And it is, and it was. But you choose this for you. This is on you. And it's hard because you chose to be here. Are you okay with that? And I wanted that. Because in my life, I'd gone through stuff that I didn't get to choose, but I still dealt with it. And we still had to learn how to deal with it. My brother, my family, everybody. And so now I was like, no, this is it. This is it. I get to prove to myself that I can do hard things when I choose to do hard things.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
That's amazing. I mean, here's the thing: is you probably walked into your first summer with this emotional reservoir that was significantly bigger than the average rookie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that's probably accurate. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, relatively. Yeah, that's probably okay to say.
And I think that every summer, every time you get more responsibility, it grows that type of thing. I know, like, before my first summer, I had like a thimble of emotional reservoir that is just like, I'd pour it out and I was like, But by the end of like my 7th summer, I'm running orgs and different things like that. It's like I had an oil tanker. And it's like another, I remember real specifically. Okay, so this is not a ponytail story I was going to tell, but can I tell you a quick book story about?
Yeah, please. It's ponytail. It's the Ponytails podcast. Let's do it.
So I'm knocking on doors to find a place to live. Going on I think it was my 5th summer. Maybe it was my 6th, right?
What a time.
Yeah, exactly.
What a time in your life, like, just to go back and be like, that happened. I used to do that.
Right. Yeah, it was ridiculous. So, and it was one of those things where I rarely would talk to Tim Ritzer. He was my manager, and God, I love that guy. He's just amazing. But
he'll be on the show at some point in time in the future for sure.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, I'll tune in for that for sure. So, but anyway, I'm knocking on doors, and I've got a stick. It's a Saturn SL1, book car. And I roll up into this driveway that's steep. It's like a 60-degree grade. And I go and I knock on the door, and the woman doesn't come to the door right away. And then as I see her coming, I hear chunk. And I look over at my car and I hear chunk. And I didn't put the emergency brake on well enough or tight enough. Chunk. And then all of a sudden, so I go running, sprinting into the car. I dive into the window because I'm that stupid. A moving vehicle, and I dive into the window head first. It's no Dukes of Hazzard, feet first kind of thing, head first. And I reach down into the floor, and I'm trying to push on the brake with my left hand, and I hit the clutch. So I hit the clutch,
that releases it. Oh no.
It was a 45-mile-an-hour street on this like county road, and my legs are doing this, out of the back of it, out of the side of it. The woman's got to be looking at me. She shuts her door. She's like, "This is the craziest thing. I don't want any part of it." My legs actually take out a mailbox that was on the other side, and then I went down a hill more and crashed into a tree, and it like folded my trunk like an accordion. And when I uprooted this mailbox, pulled it out, and then it was like, so I'm like, shit.
Oh my!
I gotta call Ritzer on this one because I was emotionally fucked up after that, and I'm like, this is my sixth summer. I just took it was like my second or third group through sales school, and so it's funny how the small things, you're never too big. You never have so much character that you can't continue to grow. You can't, you're never untouchable.
That's absolutely. More Utley was growing all the way up till the end.
Yeah.
Is
Is that right? That's cool.
I'm assuming. I mean, everybody, right? You, like that. It's just what you just said. You never outgrow. Like your character can always grow. There's always room.
Yeah.
For more lessons. I think it's because there's so many different people in life who have had so many different experiences that, while relatable, are still different, right? Yeah. Like there's people that could understand. Like for me, I'm an immigrant. That's a big part of my identity, right? But there's other immigrants who've had a much harder, relatively, right, tougher experience than I have, and there's so many things I can learn from them. And I have, right? On the other hand, as a man, right, there's different people who have had it as a man or as a married or as a person who's in marriage, or as a person.
Well, congratulations, you're recently married.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Or as a person that's going to be a father, right? Like all these different aspects of your life that you experience being a father, just because you're a dad, or just because you sold books, even, which I think is the beauty of the show, is, hey, I had this hard experience selling books door to door, but so did you. And the things that you learned might have been similar, might have been relatable, but they're still yours to learn. And they're still worthy of sharing on here because they're yours. And the way that you got to be led to that point in your life, or that happened, is completely, probably uniquely different statistically and otherwise, like way different than anybody else. And so even though I had car problems and you had car problems, or like I had, PR problems, or other people had PR, like the way that you experience those things based on you and who you are at that point,
right,
are worthy of sharing and listening and learning from. And I can't experience them all at the same time. So I'm glad that you're teaching me.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant thought too, though, because I mean, it's one of those things that I think book field stories can be relatable to almost everything. And that's what I love about this podcast, is that it doesn't necessarily have to, and like that story that I just told didn't have a single lesson, but you could think of about 10 different things that might help a daughter, a kid in high school, a person that's a CEO, for crying out loud. They could hear something and go, well, here's what I did in my crazy summer job that helped me to figure out, a way to have development, personal growth in character, grit, positive attitude, all of those different types of things. And yeah, I mean, but it doesn't necessarily have to be selling books. Ooh, can I show you something?
Yeah.
Here. So I just finished my first triathlon.
What? Fuck, that's crazy. Is it full blown? Is it full triathlon? Like
no, not like an Ironman. No, it was an Olympic tri. So
it's still crazy, by the way.
It's like 1,500 meter swim and I guess it was 6 mile
casual
run and a 26 mile bike ride. So
nah, dude, it's crazy,
right? And so I'll tell everyone I'm 46, and I was like, all right, I got it. And I've run 3 marathons, but I was like, I haven't done that. I've got to do that kind of thing. And Andreas, have you ever ridden a road bike before?
No, I wish.
They're the ones that like have the little itty bitty tires. So here's a story I got out of this as I was and when you practice thinking of these things, they come up. So I'm 26 miles on a road bike, and I'm like, cyclists, they're committed. Have you ever, do you know the number 1 largest televised, most viewer sports event in the world is?
Tour de France.
You got it. Yeah, the Tour de France.
Yeah.
There's like some.
Yeah, I'm watching it now.
Are you really? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And these guys, you know, they're so, I've seen these guys in order to be able to commit to their times, they'll actually take a crap while they're on their bike. Have you seen this or
No.
heard about this?
No.
I mean, that is commitment, and that in a sport is commitment. You never see that kind of commitment from like figure skating.
Right.
I mean,
It's a
could
different
you
level.
imagine? Could you imagine Michelle Kwan? She's starting a triple Salchow, and Scott Hamilton is commentating, and he's like, yesterday Michelle Kwan, she practiced for 14 hours on this triple Salchow, wore a diaper so that she could poop her pants, and she just sharted, that kind of thing. It's like, no, you never see that because
Crazy.
right, but cyclists do that kind of thing, and I think here, again, we need to talk to people about things
Wow.
like commitment. So here, let me can I tell you, this is something that might be valuable. Can I share with you how
Yeah.
I
Please do.
okay. here's how I made the decision, the commitment to be a field manager, because it was a big moment for me. I just graduated from college, and I had this little studio apartment. I had a good summer the summer before, but I only brought out 3 people. It wasn't like I was a great recruiter, but it was January, and GRS was coming up in a little bit. I had choices. Now, I believed in Southwestern. I believed in how much I've grown and how other people will grow with problem solving and emotional development and their attitude and those things. So I'm sitting on the edge of my bed in my studio apartment, and I made this pact with God. And I knew I'm dealing with the Almighty. I'm like, God, I'm making a choice here, a life choice. I said, I'm sensing that I'm in the right direction for me to go full time and recruit and then sell this summer. But if you've got something else for me, I'm open-minded and open-hearted, but you've got to let me know like really loud because I'm kind of dense, right? And I said, but here's the thing, GRS is coming up. I'm going to commit to this thing with my whole self. And if I do, I want you to bless it like crazy. Otherwise, I'm out. Tell me that I don't need to do this. And and it was kind of crazy. I just had this sense that the response was go to work. Stop grabbing your balls and go to work. So that week, what happened is I ended up making, it was all about the commitment. I made I phoned 5 days a week, even Thursday. Did you ever field manage? Did you ever do that?
Oh yeah. Like full.
Yeah.
It's called full timing now, but yeah, absolutely.
Or full timing.
I did one summer, just one summer. It was rough.
Okay. Well, yeah. No, I mean, it's hard as hell. But I was one of those guys where I was like, I'm not even going to party with my girlfriend who became my wife. She's out at the bars. I'm just going to, Thursday night, I'm still phoning. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
You gotta get those Friday commits, baby. Gotta finish out the
right.
week.
That's right. But it was so cool. And I was humbled. That year I had that number 1 team. And the thing is that there was power behind the commitment. It seemed to move objects out of the way that could have been in the way. What's the book you just said you're reading? Obstacles Away.
The Obstacles Away. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Alicia Huck recommended that, by the way. Great book.
Great book. So there is this Gallup study that showed that 13% of people that were surveyed, they were psychologically engaged in their jobs. And 24% are actively working against their organization, and 63% are going through the motions. So look at those numbers again. 13% people are really engaged. 24% are actively working against the organization, and 63% could care less. They're going through the motions. And so 87, that means 87% of people, they haven't made a full commitment psychologically to engage in what they're doing.
That's crazy.
Right?
Wild.
And that's the beauty of selling books, because when you sell books, you don't have a choice. I mean, you're not going to last.
If you don't engage.
Yeah. But I had an off-schedule summer, my 3rd summer. I was just, and I wasn't engaged. But here's the thing is how many alumni don't carry that over to other areas of their lives? And there's been moments when I've had that too. And instead they slide back into their peer groups of, and I don't know anybody, I'm not picking anyone, but there's some people that'll slide back in the peer groups of mediocrity. They just kind of go with the flow. And then yeah, they haven't found the value of really making a choice. So again, this leads back to the character of commitment and some of those things. And um, yeah, you just made a big
So
commitment,
good.
of
Yeah.
getting married. And could you imagine what it would have been like if you just slid into that decision?
Yeah, that's wild. We actually was just talking about this with so we're recording tomorrow with Cassandra Gardner, and we were
Oh
just
yeah, yeah.
I called her and I was like, "Hey, excited for your episode because she's doing some cool stuff," and started talking about commitment, and I talked about marriage, and we talked about
Okay,
and this is what I told my wife too. I was
cool.
like, "Listen, she didn't sell books, so you kind of have to like explain this craziness, and she loves this whole idea and the culture of it. She's like, this is so wild that you did this, that you did this. But I told her, and we were on the same page about this, where it's like, look, like I'm with you no matter what happens.
Hmm.
Like we have to make this. I mean, this is it. Like this means a lot to me, and I feel like a lot of people think they just say those words, but they don't really think. Yvette, and I got to give a shout out to Yvette. She's the one that taught me the untils. This is one of her. And you probably knew Yvette. She was a beast during
Yeah.
your
Oh
time. She
yeah,
was a
yeah. She and I were
contemporary of
buddies.
yours.
When we were selling, we were good friends. She
She's
was
a
sales manager
beast.
with
I
me.
mean,
Yeah, she's awesome.
she's an incredible human being. But like that, she's the one that taught me this valuable lesson of untils and of burning your ships, right?
Yeah,
Where it's like when Cortez showed up, we can talk about the
yeah,
the with notwithstanding the crazy murder and all that stuff, but the idea of like when he showed up, he's like, we're gonna take over this place, and they burn the ships, meaning like
right.
we either
There's no going back.
survive or we die. Like there's no
Mhm.
going back to this. And so that was kind of the same idea where it's like, hey, we're burning our ships. A lot of people get married or they jump into these relationships and they end up getting married, and it's like, oh, I'll be with them until, but unless they cheat on me, or unless they're a
Right,
bad
right,
father, or unless they're like blah blah blah. And it's like, no, that's, you have untils is what that means, as in
right.
like, I'll be with you until this happens. And if you
Yeah,
have that, that just snowballs and it generates this like stupid excuse, and those excuses become reasons, and then all of a sudden you have this failed marriage because you were like, all right. Now, again, I'm not blaming people for getting divorced. My parents were divorced. I understand. I
mine
watched it
too.
happen. I get it. I get it. But for me, that's not how I wanted to go. And so when upon arriving at this decision, like you said, I didn't slide into this. It was like, hey, this is
Yeah,
intentional. Like we're here and we're doing this. And no matter what happens, we're going to do this. We're going to see this through because I'm choosing you as a person out of social construct or religious reasons. I don't care how we like, how people decide to look at it. But regardless, for me, that's what that means. It means we're
right.
doing this
And
and I'm in this.
that commitment is going to help you and any person through the toughest of times.
Oh
That
yeah.
emotional, it's similar, the emotional preparation that you have before you go and sell books. And that's now I'm not trying to get any moral argument on this at all, but that's sometimes the problem with people cohabitating or living together before they're married.
Mm,
And again, this is not in a moral way, but that's sometimes what happens. They don't fully choose. They're like, oh, okay, marriage is the next step. We're already living together. That just makes sense. And then it's like, it's just got unfeeling. Well, the next step is to get divorced. It's just, I'm not happy, that kind of thing. Whereas even if you cohabitate before you get married, but then you make that full commitment and going, all right, this is like the forever deal, forever, ever, forever, ever, that kind of thing.
forever
As you
ever.
said, forever, ever. Yeah. You burn the bridges and count the costs and um, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
nothing.
it's
Like, I mean, I know that, again, and this is different because people are like, well, why would you marry someone that you think could probably do this? No, it's not. And it's not saying that I expect my wife to cheat on me or I expect my wife to like hit our kids or like to be a serial killer.
mhm,
That's not what that means. But it does mean that I understand that you are this age and you know what you know about the world in our life right now, and then
mhm,
in 10 years that's going to change. The world
yeah,
is going to change, you're going to change, I'm
yeah,
going to change, and no matter what, we're in this.
yeah,
We are in this because we're becoming together now. Things that happen in our lives are going to happen to us, not just to you, because anything that affects you affects me, and that's okay. We have individual, like you have your life and I have mine, and it's not my job to be your support and your superhero, but it is my job to stick with you when you need me.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what I'm here for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
on the other hand, it is your job to that I should be able to rely on you when I need help, right? It's like this. It's like a Venn diagram, right? Where she's herself and I am myself, and our marriage is the overlap. And
You're
and
suddenly
it's
becoming a
not the
team.
same
Yeah.
circle, but whenever we need to rely on that middle ground, we will. But no matter what, those circles aren't breaking apart. Like, we got to keep this, because I need to rely and trust that I can rely on you when I'm not at my best, and you can rely on me when you're not at your best, even if it's at the same time. So
Andres,
that's
that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant, because it's like, as you say, that Venn diagram, it's like there's that third party your marriage is an actual third party that you end up
yeah.
feeding, and you end up, and I feel, so I'll be celebrating 20 years in September with my
My
four
God,
year
man.
4-year
Cheers
book
to
woman.
you.
Thanks, man.
September
Hey,
what?
I'll try
I'll
September
text you.
21st. Yeah. All
I
right.
will
There you
text
go.
you.
All
Amy,
right.
please write that down. But I will text you. I will
All right.
text you and say congratulations, September
Well,
21st. I got
it's
you.
cool what you said. And to digress for just a second, we're going to Hawaii for our
Oh,
20th.
nice.
And instead of going to the beach, we decided, no, we're going to go into the middle of the jungle of Hawaii. And we love to hike and run and different things like that. And so, as you're talking about Bisler in Colombia and that being kind of a jungle kind of theme and stuff, we're like, oh, that's the cool way to go. So you'll
So I'll
get some
see you in
traction with that.
Colombia. So I'll see you in Colombia.
I'm not going to put it in stone, but yeah, maybe I might. Yeah, I'm very intrigued to go. So for sure. But so it's interesting, because what happened in our marriage through time is you find, now we talked about how you can choose things that help to develop your character through stress, challenge, and uncertainty, but there are things that happen to you. And one of the toughest parts of my marriage was the first year that my son was born. I love him dearly. I'm not, there's no shame or blame on my son, but that kid did not sleep for a month. And,
Oh no.
I remember, it's one of those, have you ever heard, you've heard the term die to yourself, right? You've heard the term, which
Mm.
really just talks about be humble, it's not about me. And I know that as soon as I had kids, it was not about me. It's a great thing to work with Southwestern for 80 hours a week, because even though I don't work 80 hours a week now, but sometimes I do, because it's like I come home, I've got my wife, my kids, and I've got my son to hang out with, find out how his day is, and joke around with my daughter. But when there was one day, my wife says after a month, I'm going to go to the store. I'll be gone for 45 minutes. Are you good? I'm like, yeah, for sure. So she goes off to the store, and my son starts crying right then, and he wouldn't stop. And it was almost like an hour at that point. And I'm trying to everything I possibly could do. And after about 45 minutes, what they teach you, don't shake the baby. I swaddle him up, and I put him in his crib, and I went into my bathroom, and I like went into the fetal position. It was so bad.
Weeping.
Yeah. And then my wife comes home at exactly that moment. And it's like, she was attracted to me as when I was a sales manager, as dude, you're the guy that can, all those things. And then she came to find out my real character is that a baby can put me in the fetal position and all that. But what's cool, the moral of the story, the point is that she goes, okay, I can see, where you've reached your limit. I see your, if you will, ugliness. I see what that is. And I can then go ahead and accept you for where that's at. And that happens over and over and over with a committed relationship, that sometimes you have to go, oh, the bar's lowered. Okay, I still love that. I still love the person when that bar's lowered, that kind of thing. Because we put our false front on the stuff in the beginning. So yeah, solid.
That's marriage advice that people need to hear, my man. That's
yeah, right.
Stuff.
So here's a tip for making for commitments. Can I give a tip on commitments?
Yes, sir. Mike is yours.
So the tip is that there is value in limiting your choices, because it's ridiculous how many choices we have nowadays. Would you? I mean,
oh yeah,
you know what I'm
with
talking about?
technology, internet. Oh yeah, I mean everywhere. Shopping, the type of house you should buy, the person you should marry. Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, and I find there's an inverse relationship between the number of choices that we have and our happiness or our satisfaction or contentment. And so I loved grocery shopping when I was in Bulgaria because any of my Bulgarian friends listening to this, they'll know you go to like a Carrefour and that's a little bigger one, but you could go to the corner market and they would have two, maybe three different types of bread that you could choose from. And the stores are really small, the corner stores. And now I came back to the United States and they have this store in Texas called HEB. Ever heard of this one?
No,
It's
no.
okay. It's Kroger. You've heard of that? Maybe, I don't know, but
Yeah, I've heard of
um,
Kroger.
yeah. And there's a whole bread aisle, and there's 90 different choices that you could choose from in your bread. In your bread. And I remember standing there as soon as I came back from Bulgaria, and I was paralyzed. It was way too many choices. So the big takeaway is that psychological commitment and life satisfaction, they go hand in hand. And when you commit to one thing, you won't see greener pastures over the fence or on social media, because comparison is the biggest stumbling block of gratitude. It's the thief of joy. Have you heard that before?
Yes.
Comparison is the thief of joy. So choose wisely and commit, and you'll be a lot happier. Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
Less is more.
Less is more.
Golly, man, I don't know how much time you have, but I could go. There's a whole conversation you just made me think of that.
I got
Long
Long
story short, Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari. I know he's a comedian, but he wrote a phenomenal book on relationships, and that's exactly what he talked about. Where he basically took, and he was afraid that people were going to take him seriously because he was a comedian, and so he literally hired world renowned psychologists to be like, all right, teach me about this. And what he found is people who had been married, it's called Modern Romance because he basically runs a comparison on how people used to find each other and get married versus today, and what marriage and dating is like today with technology, the internet, dating apps, and all that stuff. And one of the things that I found the most interesting, there was a point in the book where he talks about there was people who have been married for 50 years who met each other, a long time ago, but the dating pool that they had at the time was literally within their own block. The way that people used to get married or often was oh, I met her because she lived 4 doors down and she went to my school, and at recess we played together, but then in the summers we were in the same neighborhood and that's how we met, and that's the first time we met. Now, that didn't mean that they got married or they were in love with each other at that point, but later on in life they were just familiar with that human, and so then as they went on in their lives, they just kept in touch, and then they ended up getting married, and then or they were in a small town. And so the pool to select from was literally a 2-block radius. Whereas now it's the pool to select from is the world. You could literally meet someone on Instagram from China and then just go, wow, this person's everything I've been looking for. And there's stories of that. And so he goes, the beauty of it is there's more choices, but the problem is there's more choices. And so it just becomes this whole issue where it's the problem today is, oh my God, did I choose the right person? Because there's so many choices that they fit 99% of your criteria, and really you could probably make it work with most of those people from a standpoint of a marriage, but there's just so many of them that's the thing people suffer from is they can't commit. Back to the original comment was, hey, this person meets 99% of your criteria, and while this other person has that 1% that is missing, they have 1% that this person actually has. So it's you gotta choose whether you enjoy this 1% over that 1%, but they don't have all of it. Nobody's really gonna have everything. And so the trick isn't getting it 100% right. The trick is getting it enough percent right, and then just committing to that. Because it's there's so many people out there. I look at this right now. My wife is amazing. I love her. She's great. She's got all these great attributes. And of course, like myself and like everyone else, she has her imperfections. But then it's so does everyone else that I could have possibly met. And there's, I'm sure, hundreds of people in this country alone, or in the States, or in the city, even in Portland, that have 99% of the criteria that I was looking for as well. And it just happens that, so the trick isn't making the right choice. The trick is making the choice right. I chose you.
There you
and
go.
So now I got to make this right. My dad taught me that a long time ago. And it's okay, I chose you. Now we got to make it right, because there's probably, honestly, somebody else I probably could have married. It could have been just as happy. Sorry if that sounds rude or shitty to say, but it's not. That's the reality of the world. There's 7 billion people out there. Statistically speaking, there's somebody out there that's probably just as good or has all the attributes and all the things, but that doesn't matter. What matters is I chose you, and I'm going to
Mhm.
make this work because you met, and like you're enough. You're enough for me, and I'm going to make that happen. And that's
So
what I've learned.
that's beautiful. It's brilliant. And it goes towards, here's the next question about this is, have you heard the saying that wherever you go, there you are?
Oh,
Wherever you
love
go,
that
there
quote.
you are.
I
Right?
love that quote. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is one of those things where what I found in 20 years of marriage is that it's as much about who I'm becoming in the process as it is about finding that right match, or more. It's
Yeah.
much more about that kind of
It's
thing.
about you.
There's been things that we've had in our lives, my wife and I, that has had such a profound impact on how I've become, how I've developed. And we it's grown to a, if you will, an inseparable team. I'm pretty proud. If I'm not going to jinx myself or anything of that. I don't knock on wood, but no, it is again, it goes back to who are you becoming in the process, which is a beautiful thing that we get into when we're in Southwestern. We start to think about that. I think it's too rare that you see people that make choices, that even write down their goals, their thoughts about life, their character goals, or whatever it might be. And instead, if you're not intentional about who you're becoming, you're unintentionally going to slide into who you're becoming. And yeah,
Oh,
it's trouble.
what
Yeah,
is it? And this is actually probably a good segue for us to get into how you got recruited.
sure.
And I mean, I'm sure there's more things we can still talk about. So no worry, we can still talk about those
No,
as we come
yeah,
along. But like, this is a solid transition into one of the things I did talk to you about, like recruit, or when you're getting recruited, is they give you that common denominator of success that eventually that says who you someday are going to be, you are now becoming, right? And
yeah,
it's that same idea where it's like now, regardless of the direction. Um, uh, have you read Scary Close by Don
yeah.
Miller?
By Don Miller. Yeah,
Phenomenal
yeah,
book. And
yeah,
the quote in that is like the one that I always like, I've read it multiple times through, and it's really interesting, by the way. I'd
mm,
recommend rereading it for anybody who's listening. If they've read it once, read it again, because you're at a different spot now than you were the first time you read it. And so different parts
yeah,
of that book will actually hit you differently. But the very first time that I read it, and this has stuck with me since and forever, is and whether it's in your romantic relationships or in your personal relationships or business relationships, is every relationship is heading somewhere. Where is this going?
mm,
And that's good advice
hmm,
for married people, single people, people in relationships, people, and like every relationship's going somewhere. Where is this one going?
yeah,
Where are we headed right now? And
yeah,
it kind of goes into what you're someday going to be, you're now becoming. That could be a relationship with yourself. Every
yeah.
relationship is going somewhere. Where is it going? And so, um, on that note,
It's brilliant.
maybe we can transition a little bit into this. Now, before we get into that, I do have to talk a little bit and give some shout
Yeah,
outs. Is that okay?
that's
But
perfect.
okay.
Yeah,
Unless if you got more to say on this topic, though, please do before I go into this. Because once we move, it might change the dynamic. But
no,
this is
no.
a wonderful conversation. This has
Yeah,
been
no,
great.
absolutely. The only thing I would say about this relationship piece is where it's headed is you know, as an adult, I'm much less of an old adult, I should say. I'm much less of a people pleaser. I used to be a people pleaser, and I have a ton of acquaintance friends, but right now I've got about 15 couples that my wife and I are friends with, and it's just so fulfilling and so wonderful to have that. And if there are people that are outside of that are going to take my space or my energy, I drop that like a hat. It's just like, no, I don't have time for that. And we've had that situation come up where there's other people that have a little bit of drama, and we just, we let that go. It's not worth it to be able to put that energy in. So yeah, yeah,
I'm so
man.
happy you're saying this. Literally, my wife and I ran into someone like this where we were like, they're great. It's great to hang out with them, but there's this bit attached, and it's like,
Yeah,
I just
yeah, I
don't
gotta
have
drop
time
it.
for dealing with that. And it sounds rude to say, but honestly, it's just more a self-preservation thing where it's like, I know where this is heading. I know what this is going to end up looking like, and I just don't have emotional energy to be spending on the, it sounds
for
rude,
sure.
but there's like so much other stuff
No,
that's
there's you only
important that
have
I
so much
need to deal
capacity.
with that I just can't. I just can't. Otherwise, I'm
Yeah.
gonna wear myself thin like butter spread over too much bread. Like I just can't.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
and
Yeah, and you
that's
got to
from, I think that's
cultivate.
from Lord of the Rings.
I loved
Yeah.
it. I loved it. It's great. And you've got to cultivate, how much you got to cultivate the relationships that's going to take you where you want to be. Like the people that I'm in relationship with, they're authentic, they're joyful. And the funny thing is that they've all lived overseas at one time or another, with the exception of one or two. But it's so cool that they've got some of those experiences. And yeah, so tell you what, while
Yeah.
you do that, I'm gonna
Beautiful.
run to the restroom. Is that all right? Is
Yes,
that okay?
sir. Please do. Yeah.
Take a
I'll
quick
drop
head
the
break.
screen from you, and then I'll join you when you come back. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Potty breaks are welcome. Potty break.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks.
Go for it. Yes, sir. Oh man, wow, what a wonderful conversation we've been having so far. And again, like I said, you guys, we're not doing any sort of ads, we're just adding advice. So hope you guys stick around for this, because we have some free money advice from Patrick Roach here for you guys. Definitely someone worth listening to if you've ever heard of Pat Roach with Southwestern Real Estate. But if you're struggling, here's what he said: if you're struggling year after year to put money away into retirement, make sure to make ambitious goals to earn and put away all of the money that you can into retirement in your first quarter of the year. This is ingenious. I think this is beautiful. Gosh, Pat, you're awesome. When you motivate yourself and put yourself in position to earn all of your retirement money in the first quarter, you'll find yourself avoiding a lot of complacency that you may have once have had. And so that said, we can get you in touch with Pat so you can learn more about financial freedom and working with Pat at Southwestern Real Estate. Fantastic company. A big of a shout out to our buddy at actually, I wanted to get I'm gonna wait to do Thought Leader when Tony gets back, because I wanted to talk to him a little bit about Thought Leader and see how that maybe could be helpful for him. So we'll hold that thought. I'm going to skip over to Quintin's tip of the week on networking, of the month on networking. This is from Cardinal Senior Benefits. And here's what he had to say about networking. So, and this is actually kind of what Tony and I were just talking about. So be very intentional about spending time with people that are where you want to be, and do the things that those people you want to be around do. Make those people a part of your network and routine. When you surround yourself with mediocre people, you're able to convince yourself that your shit doesn't stink. That makes sense, right? It's easy to be comfortable and feeling like you're awesome when you're hanging out with people that aren't doing the things that you want to do. So when you surround yourself with studs or people who are going to make you reach for things, you're able to keep a growth mindset. So when you're choosy about your time spent, you'll be way better off. And actually, I'm going to bring Tony back on for the screen to talk about Thought Leader, because I don't know if this is something that you guys could partner up with. But I just wanted to, Tony, give you this connection here. So we partner with Dylan Barr and Fido. Dylan, they're working with a company called Thought Leader, and these guys help people prep for TEDx talks, and they help them land
Nice.
TEDx talks. So I don't know if this would even be interesting to you or not. Maybe they're your competitors. I don't know. But basically what they're
No.
doing, they're looking for two people right now where they help. Because I mean, it's one of the largest public speaking platforms in the world, if not the largest public speaking platform in the world. So basically they're looking for high motivated, high performance sales reps making about $200,000+ a year, working 4 days a week. They only work 4 days a week. Pretty solid track record of success. Basically, what they're doing is they're working with professionals, entrepreneurs, change makers to get their message out into the world by leveraging the world's largest stage, which is the TEDx platform. They're looking for two people to add to their Southwestern alumni sales advisors. And it's a fully remote team of 25 people. If you're interested in earning that kind of cash, 200K plus, you can send Dylan Barr at Thought Leader. He's the head of sales and client experience there. Of course, he sold books. And his email is db@thought-leader.com. DB, Dylan Barr, DB at thought-leader, as in thought, as in thinking, thought, THOUHT leader.com. And so yeah, that might be somebody that may be interesting to connect with in general, because
For sure.
they have all these people who want to be public speakers, and I don't know if maybe there's a collab you can do with their coaching program. Some of their program involves coaching people to become better speakers. So I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there for you because you're kind of in that realm. But they're awesome to what they're doing there, and basically people are like, hey, I want to do a TEDx talk. to help expand my business or just to get my message out, which is important. And TEDx, like you said, it's like Toastmasters, which is like a competition of public speakers, but TEDx is more like the other side of
Yeah,
that coin,
man.
where it's like these are world-class speakers who are wanting to like really put an amazing idea out into the world. And if you're landing a TEDx talk, it's like writing a book, right? It's like that's
Yeah.
a bucket list for some people. And so, yeah, might be worth making that connection with you. I'll if you're interested afterwards, I can put.
I'm absolutely interested. Yeah. Yeah. If you can help me connect with him, that'd be great. I'd be grateful. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah,
Good,
absolutely.
sir.
So, yeah, those are all the shout outs I have for now. Some more coming up here on the ponytails, and some more words of wisdom from our jockeys here coming up at the ponytails break. But for now, again, I'm sure we'll come back and talk about some of the other topics. Man, this has been so good so far. Like, I have had
This
such
is
a fun
money.
time talking to Tony. Tony,
Yeah.
you're awesome. Yeah, okay, so this is time we like to rewind the clocks, go back to 1995 or 94 fall, depending on what time of the year it was for you when you got recruited at Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. But tell us a story about how the hell you got into this whole crazy whirlwind of adventure that is the Southwestern Advantage experience.
Yeah, yeah. So my student manager was a guy named Jay Stibney, and I think he was on his 6th year. He was a field manager. And I was one of those guys. So here's maybe something to share is that I was in a situation with a divorced family where I was trying to figure out how could I be 100% independent? How could I make it on my own? How could I have situations where I don't have my parents having to pay for, and I went to a private college, which was at that time, it was expensive. It was 14 grand a year to be able to cut the chops. And so when he called, I was I was one of those guys. I brought my roommate. I was one of those Sammy Southwestern just freaks from the get go, you know. And I wish
Straight pony. You're a
oh
Clydesdale,
my
man.
god,
You're
I was, yeah, absolutely. And Jay was great, but he intimidated me, right? And so, and then there's another guy who's a very good friend named Wayne Berger, and Wayne works with Salesforce now. He was a 5 summer book guy, and Wayne, so Jay was like bad cop, not bad cop, but tough cop, and Wayne was the softy. He was just like kind. He's like, so how you feeling about this? And I was like, ooh, I like this guy. I want to work on his team. And then I found out that I'm on Jay's team, and I was like, all right, he's going to teach me to be tough. So and I never went cold. It was the parent calls, all those things. I was like, I'm doing this. Who cares? And yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of stories that I'm going to save for ponytails about my first summer that were pretty fun. But
Sweet.
I mean, I was an
Yes.
easy recruit. There isn't much more to say. But I'll tell you this: when it comes to recruiting, there's really 3 skills, and it doesn't matter whether you're a recruiter for Southwestern. If someone's listening to this and they're, like, or if you're from an outside company, there's 3 skills to it. Can I tell you? Do you mind if I share
Yeah.
it? Like the
My
basics of
God,
recruiting?
please do. This is so good.
So,
Go ahead.
and it was cool. So my best year of recruiting, Andreas, there was 11 students, 9 students, no, 10 finished, 9 came back and sold again. And those 10 did 27,000 units. So that was back in the day when they're killing it. But here's what I found is recruiting, right? All of recruiting is a transference of feeling, which sounds like selling, right? But no,
Yeah.
all of recruiting it's just the deal is, here's the problem. Great salespeople have learned the transference of feeling for selling, but they haven't figured out, in order to get people to buy, they haven't figured out how to do it with recruiting, because there's different terms. Instead of maybe excitement and enthusiasm, it's really more about credibility and belief and trust and faith. And these things kind of, all of those words go hand in hand. But rookies in any business need to believe in you, like the recruiter. They need to believe in the product. And the product, by the way, is not the books. The product is Southwestern or your company or whatever it is. And they need to believe in themselves. So when it comes to recruiting, those are the 3 things that are valuable. Is they just have to have trust and belief in those 3 things. And a recruiter's job is to move people deeper in different levels of belief in these. And that's that's a $20 trip right there. Is if you can get a person deeper in trust with themselves, with the product or the company, and then with the recruiter, now you're doing your job. So I had this I'll do a quick exercise, I'll do it with you. So if it's okay, so that
Yeah, please.
you're
I hope I don't let
you're
you
listening.
down.
Okay, great. No, you won't. No. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to pick a recruiter that you respect and admire.
We'll go
That,
with my brother. He's a
there you
DSO.
go. I was going to say it's easy with your
Sure.
brother. So here's 3 questions that I would ask any person that's in the process of recruiting to think about to help them to up their game in recruiting. So the question would be for you, Andreas, is what part of your brother's character causes you to trust him?
Wow, there's so many good ones.
Mhm.
I think that he harps on most, and that makes me just like really believe in him in this is loyalty. He just has he won't give up on you, and he respects that you won't give up on him.
There
I
you
think
go.
there's plenty to pick from, but I think that's the one. Loyalty.
Now, and your brother, so everybody knows, is a sales manager with Southwestern. So
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
how does he help people believe in Southwestern Advantage?
He's convicted in the fact that this is probably the best thing that college kids can do for themselves in the world. And
There
I
you
don't
go.
know that I disagree or agree, but he believes that for sure. Like
Well, there you go.
I mean, his conviction in that is 100%.
Yep. And every recruiter needs that conviction from that point
Yeah.
to be a
Mhm.
transference of feeling of that trust and that faith. So then the third question is how does he help you believe in yourself? Those are the 3 questions for a recruiter. How does he help you believe in yourself?
I think if I had to generalize it, I think leading by example. I mean, he took an organization that was at best taken on water,
Ah,
and now they're like towards the top of the food chain as far as like production and or just overall performance. So he decided not to give up on it, and so yeah, so just
okay. So
yeah,
were you a
commitment.
rookie of his? Was
No,
he
I
you were
recruited him. And then I left, and he continued. So actually, in fact, that's funny. The year I left, he had a choice to also leave or go. Because Grant Greeter, who you
uh-huh.
also probably know,
Yep.
and Yvette had left, and the Force organization was kind of in shambles. There was like
Mhm.
6 managers left coming back out of like 130 that were in my first sales school. Like it was
Yeah.
crazy, and
Yeah.
so it was like he either was like, "I'm done, I'm out," or I can rebuild this, and he chose to stay and rebuild, and he
Yeah. Good for him.
succeeded. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that kind of conviction really was like, and like, hey, we can redo this and we can make it better. And he did it. So that, I mean, yeah, that I respect it a lot.
Yeah. So now, if you're thinking of the feeling that you had through that, let's say you had the feeling from how someone was believing in Southwestern, or how you were believing in Southwestern based on what your brother did or said, how you believed in yourself and how you believed in him. Those feelings, those are the kind of things that a recruiter wants to emulate, and it can
Mm.
transfer to any position. And if you can emulate the ability to help produce those feelings in the people that you've recruited, that's the number one thing that you can do to help recruit a lot of people and help them to jam well. So here's the other nugget. The number 2 thing is, or number 2 skill, is being a future predictor. Now we all kind of you know what I mean by that, right? Kind of
Yeah.
predicting the
Setting
future for
goals.
the yeah, in a way, setting goals with one caveat of having the emotional awareness that goes with it. So I would say I'd almost call it other oriented future predictor. And so can I tell you a story of a time outside
Yeah,
of
man.
Southwestern? I saw, okay.
Pl-
So I was,
Please do. Any story you have, by the way, please tell it.
all
All of
right. Sorry.
it.
It's
Go for
almost just it's in
it.
politeness. It's like, hey, can I tell you a story? So,
I will say yes every time, but continue to ask. That's great.
all
I
right.
don't dog you for being polite about it, but I will
Okay.
say absolutely. The answer is a respectful fuck yes. Please say
Fuck yeah. All right. Great.
it.
Fuck yeah. So one time that I was visiting this Roma village in Albania, in Tirana. Now you weren't expecting that to come out. So
No, but that's
right.
that's
So
awesome.
so I was living in Bulgaria at the time, and I was part of a service team for this international students, this service project that they were doing. And these students were from Switzerland, England, and Germany. Like there's a school called Tassus out there. And the kids, the parents were business owners and heads of state. And these kids were spending anywhere from 2 to 3 grand in order to come to serve for a week in these super poor, if you will, slum areas of Albania. Like the contrast couldn't be, more stark.
Right.
And so Tirana is this city of 1.2 million people. And the mayor who I met, he had, to his credit, he had just put this highway through a slum. That's not the best part, but what he did is he created government housing for the people that lived in the slum before where the highway was built. And for all these displaced people to be, and we saw these people, like they would have in their house, in their apartment house, nothing but a single mattress. You could look in and you're like, ooh, boy, this is a different world from where you come from. And we were charged to build a playground in this government housing projects. That's what they wanted us to do. And we had this Albanian advisor, and he knew what he was doing. Our job was to build a slide. So it had this beautiful, nice, yellow, shiny slide. And he told us that the first thing we need to do is we need to pour the concrete deep and then let these long steel bars set into the ground in the slide. And he said this was super important. He said, don't add to the slide before the concrete has set. Because once the slide is up, the kids are going to want to use it and you won't be able to hold them back. And so for 2 days, we had these concrete studs that were coming out of the ground and we had to guard them so that no kids would touch them. Literally 24/7, we're guarding these poles that are coming out of the ground. And I thought, this is the craziest thing ever. Why do I have to protect a pole? And so then on the third day, it was so fascinating. It started to like set the concrete, and then all of a sudden we put the slide on, and as soon as they crank on the last bolt, 60 kids come out of like the left, the right, and they're just all over the place. These kids are jumping on this 8-foot slide at one time, 5, 6, 7 kids at a time going down. And this lasted for 6 hours straight because they had nothing else, that this slide was so amazing. So here's the thing. My Albanian friend, he knew these kids' nature and that they couldn't wait until the concrete set. Ooh, there's a phone call from my mom. I should have turned that off. Hi, Mom. But he knew that
I was going to say it's so funny because I usually say that's my mom, but damn,
oh God,
you said it's your mom.
Yeah,
Mom,
but she should have known.
She always tries to get a hold of me somehow.
She's going to listen to this.
Same thing happens. Man. My mom, by the way, just so you know, my mom's called me since we've been live.
Is that right?
Oh yeah.
Guys, your mom and my mon should get together sometime and have a conversation. It'd be like
something about becoming a parent, and you might know this as a dad. Sorry to make this a tangent on your story.
No, it's
like it's a chip that kids are put into nowadays where it's like they know how to use iPads, but parents get a chip also at the hospital where it's like, I'm gonna learn the most inconvenient fucking time to call my child, and then I'm gonna use it.
Yeah.
And do, like my mom, like I was working all stuff all day, but I could have been able to handle her call. But of course, she called while we're on the air. Like, of course. So anyway, your mom, she called. My mom called. Great. Back to the story.
No, that's okay. And actually, if it's okay, if there's time for it, I want to tell you a story how I talk to my dad now, probably every week. And it's the absolute opposite. It used to be one of those things. It's like it's a burden. And now it's cool. I actually heard you talk about your dad one time on one of the podcasts. And I was like, was that right? Yeah. Yeah. I was like, oh,
I think so. Probably.
Yeah.
We cried about dad stuff. That was rough. That was good.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, here's the long
slide. The last slide goes in, 60 kids come back out, and the lesson that you're learning. Sorry, let me get us back on track.
Well, yeah, no, but the Albanian dude, he knew that these kids, what their nature was like, and that they couldn't control themselves, and he prepared us before we came, so that we would have to protect the slide and to help the concrete be set. And then he reminded us to wait when the kids, they'd start whining and different things like that. And he told us why that we needed to wait. So he actually made it repeat it. He made us repeat it back to him. Kind of, and I was like, oh my God, this is like training a rookie, because he knew how to frame it up in our mindset. how to make a match between, our jobs and the environment that we were going to be in. And we were totally unaware of that environment.
100%. Oh,
Right?
it resonates hard with anybody that tried to recruit someone. It resonates so hard.
Oh, my favorite is the frickin' rock star that's like, I'm going to break the company record. And you're like, you're quitting day 2. I know you are.
Oh, and they do.
Right. Exactly.
And they do. Oh,
It's always the silent killer, like a fart that does really well,
and again, to reference that episode again, but it was a great episode with Shane Hertig. We had a 4th of July episode with a bunch of number 1 rookies, 3 Con Kelly, Shane Hertig, and Brandon Q, who were all number 1 rookies. That was the one criteria we wanted for that episode. And that's exactly what Shane talked about, was he became, the other 2 guys wanted and were going for it. And they said, I'm going to be the number 1 rookie, but they always do. Everyone thinks they're going to be the number 1 rookie. But the best example I thought was Shane, when he was like, dude, I honestly, I had no idea. I had no clue that I was going to be the number 1 kid. I just was doing my best. And it just turns out that when you check out, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're probably going to be the number 1. And he's like, what? You had no clue. And it shows that both ways can make it happen. But you're right. That back to the story of the slide, the idea that you're thinking there's so many lessons there. 1, trust the people that know what they're talking about. That the gentleman from Albania knew what he was talking about when he was talking about the kids.
Right.
And you did a great job to be like, all right, well, I guess that means we're going to have to make sure we watch this. But because of that, you're able to build a successful project. In this case, it was a slide, but in the summer, it could be like your good summer, or your team having a good summer, and just being able to be coachable while at the same time still doing the thing that you're doing and putting in the work that you're putting in, and then just trusting the process. So at the end, it works out how you wanted it, but you still were able to heed the advice of someone who's been there before.
Yes.
That's beautiful lesson to learn.
Yeah. Well, and the icing on the cake of that lesson is this, and this is where it comes back to recruiting, and it doesn't matter what business you're in, is to solidify that post. The key is to solidify a rookie going into it. It's not what you tell them. It's what they repeat back to you, and what they tell you is far more important than what you tell them. Because if they can repeat back to you the mindset, right? Yeah, that's necessary to succeed in selling books. This is like that concrete that's being poured in. And if they can do it in their own words, it's maybe like if they can do it even in different settings, all of a sudden the concrete is setting. And because if the concrete's not set, slide's going to break, and it's not going to be much fun, and it's not going to be used. And if the rookie's unable to formulate the critical mindsets, you're taking chances on their readiness to finish this summer or whatever job it is, because for crying out loud, if you're recruiting for another job, it's, I don't know, 10, 20, 50, $100,000 to bring someone into your organization in the first year. My wife sold pharmaceuticals, and they spent about $60,000 on her before she had any kind of return.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So if one of the things Virgie Sanford, are you familiar with her?
Legendary. Yeah.
Legendary.
Who doesn't know Virgie? She's
right.
One of the most legendary DSLs that ever lived, probably.
She's amazing. She was in my first org, really. So it's so cool.
What a wonderful human. If there was a Mount Rushmore of DSLs, I can't imagine she's not on it. Like, how is she not on that? Honestly,
it's so true. And her group, group is so amazing. There's other awesome groups, but her group is special, amazing. And I had the chance to speak to the group just this last year, and it was so cool because I talked with them about the 9 characteristics of being a great student manager, or to be, different character attributes and different things like that. But I could just see that these guys were in it to really develop and grow. They lap some of this stuff up, going, okay, this is already a part of what we're doing. So yeah, it's cool. It really is.
This is so fun. Good. Honestly, when you think about this, it's there's 2 ways to look at this. And this is the beauty about having been a bookman, is like, there's 2 ways to look at this. On the one hand, this is completely useless, right? On the other hand, you're like, you know what? this is the essence of how to handle human emotion. This is
And
the
life,
essence
yeah.
of how to handle life, how to handle your kids. I mean, in a way, the lessons you learn from recruiting, you can use it for your kids. Like the valuable lesson of, and I've mentioned this already on this episode, is being one emotional step ahead
Mm.
of what that person's learning. And
Hmm.
so, but that's really what attitude is, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
it's understanding that, like, hey, look, what you're sharing, like, to me, what you're sharing right here is like, I can't put a price tag on what you're even sharing here on the air with us, because it's so applicable to recruiting, marriage, parenting, work, like that. This is world class knowledge. And I'm
Isn't that
convicted
fun?
in that, because yeah, it's amazing, because what you're sharing, people think it's like, oh, here to recruit, you got to teach, whatever industry, pick insurance. You got to teach them about life insurance versus term and like whole life. And while those things are important technical knowledge to know,
Hmm.
at the very core of it is what you're explaining here, which is, look, you have to get at the level if you want to be a successful recruiter. Because there's one thing of, and just to give people an idea that are listening, you were a DSL, which, by the way, and I know what it takes because I saw my brother do it. I never did myself, so caveat there, but I saw my brother do it, and then at the same time, you recruited number one teams. For you to be able to do this, there's anybody can not anybody. It takes a special person to recruit someone to do anything. Like, you have to have some sort of trust and rapport built with someone to get them there. Besides that, it takes even more skill to get 18 people or several people to come do this thing. Besides that, it takes an even more special skill to get those 18 people to come and do the thing, and then do it at an excellent standard, which leads you to have the number one team. And then it takes even more skill to do that consistently. And you were one of those people that were able to get people to do that consistently. So, like, for anybody listening, as far as like what the things that you're sharing here, like, people always ask, like, oh, what's the secret to recruit a good person, whether it's in Southwestern in any industry, or what's the secret to really getting a good team in your real estate agency or whatever. Like, this shit right here that you're talking about, this is it. It's not like this technical thing that you can teach or these magic words that you can say. It's this abstract concept of, like, look, you got to connect with people and match with them at this emotional level to be able to really, like, harness their potential to become better than they imagined they could be, or as amazing as they imagine that they could be. And
Yeah.
you're sharing these nuggets of wisdom to do that. Like, this is the key. If you're looking for the secret, this is it. Like, I wish it was as simple as 1 2 3, but it's not like that, because if it was, everybody would freaking do
Right.
it. Right?
No. Yeah.
It takes this right here.
God, and thanks for saying that, Andres. I need to like look at this once it's recorded and go, when I'm having a rough day, I'm going to listen to what you just said because it makes me feel really good. But
Well, I'm glad, man. I honor you, I'm one of my favorite things about being a host of the show. It's a privilege to do this, is to be able to celebrate the people who are humble enough to get to this point, because there's also an aspect of humility that you have to understand to be able to know that it's not about you. It's about the
Mhm,
people whose
absolutely.
lives you're changing to get them to excel. And so you're not going to be the kind of person to be like, look at me, I'm so awesome. But let me tell you, look at you. You are so awesome.
Well,
And I'm
it's so
happy that you're here. And I'm honored that you're on the show.
I'm honored too. I'm super honored. And it's cool that you say that too, because if you think about now, we've talked a lot about character development, but I want to throw something out there from what I've studied about character development. It is one of those things where if you're to focus on developing your character, you will grow, but not as quickly as if you focus on being of service to other people and helping them grow in one way or another, or shaping or changing their lives. And so
Oof.
it's one of those things where maybe it's like a benchmark. It's something that, and actually, I'm coming up with ways for statistically being able to see. Now you can through like surveys and different things, but statistically being able to see someone's actual growth in their character through time. But again, if you're focusing on it, it's not going to hit as well as if you're focusing on service for other people. That's what makes all the difference. So you're providing a fantastic service for others by giving voice, by giving opportunities for people to be able to share here's what's going on in my life. Because, man, I think there's a lot of people that need that. They need that. They've got so many great things to say, and they could say it well here. So that's cool. That's
Such
very
a cool
cool.
thing, man. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, okay, so whew, thank you
Where should we
for
go?
that. So here's where I kind of want to go with this.
Yep.
So you had 7 summers, and we could talk about for hours, literally hours, about this. And by the way, you're welcome back on the show anytime you want. I had a couple of rapid fire questions to ask, and then after that, I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about your journey to becoming a DSL, because it's not often that we have a former DSL on the show.
Sure.
And so, some of that has to do with what we've been talking about already, but you said you had a bunch of stories also you wanted to share that you wrote down, so I want to give space for those as well. But at the same time, I always like to introduce, so just on a more like a rapid fire basis, 7 summers. Walk me through the places that you sold, because we this whole tangent came from like your first summer. So where did you go that first summer?
So that was Charlotte, North Carolina, just outside there, Mint Hill.
Nice.
And
Beautiful.
then it was Georgia, just outside of where was
Nice.
that? Yeah. And then third summer was back in North Carolina again. Fourth summer was in North Carolina again. I was Greensboro and Burlington. And then fifth summer, oh man, Michigan. And I was
What?
just outside of Grand Rapids.
What a
And
change.
Michigan is
Wow.
God's gift to booksellers. It is so nice. It's such perfect for like a medium-sized org of 30, 40 people. That was the first time that I was an org leader out there. And so that was brilliant. And that was the years that I really started to expand and grow. Truthfully, when I was able to give my full attention to it, field managing is when it stepped up. So then I had another summer, excuse me, beer, in
No, you're
Michigan,
good.
and a different part of Michigan on the eastern side, around Detroit and Ann Arbor and that kind of thing. And that was great, all the way to Lansing. And my org was growing in that time, and we took over about half of the state. And then Augusta, Georgia was the last summer that I was
Oh,
actually on the field. So, yeah. And that was,
wow.
yeah, it was. So I've been all over the East and South and that kind of thing. Never got a chance to really knock on doors in the tough turf and New York or some of those places where people are, wow, they
I
give you the
went. New
business.
York was my first summer, but I was
Oh,
upstate, so it wasn't quite
okay.
like but Massachusetts, they give you the business in Massachusetts. They're like
Yeah.
proudly called. Like, have you met any mass holes yet? And you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you're one of them. Like,
Yeah.
yes, and we're here. We're here right now, actually, talking about it. So cool. Did you ever sell? I'm not familiar with the geography of some of the towns you said, but did you ever sell near Asheville, North Carolina, or had Edward?
No, I didn't.
That like
That
more
was
like
the
that western
awesome.
side.
That was a wonderful, the turf where that's kind of I would have loved to sell that because I was a country seller. I love
It's so
selling in
pretty
small
over there.
towns and country, but yeah, no,
I
I never.
have a cousin that lives in Nashville, and it's like every time I go see him, I'm like, dude, this is like a pretty
Is it
part of
beautiful?
this country. It's
Yeah.
so amazing. It's so nice. It's like, wow, I would love to sell here, and this is really pretty.
Yeah, it's a part that
So,
I haven't visited, and I'd love to. We were shoot, I missed Virginia. I guess I was outside of what is it, the Hokies? What city is that in
oh,
Virginia? But anyway, Hokie
Raleigh.
land. No, not Raleigh. It was
What's
anyway. Um, oh shoot,
hold on? Let's find out. Hokies, Virginia.
I
Where
was
they are
I was
there?
I think I was off schedule that summer. I don't remember.
Blacksburg, Virginia.
Blacksburg, Virginia. Yep, I sold in
Yeah, that's it.
Blacksburg
Yeah,
for a summer
yeah.
too. So somehow those all get mixed in there.
That's also pretty. Virginia is a beautiful state we drove through there on the way to the territory, or kind of like through that area. Sometimes on the way to where, so again, I sold in North New England, and so that's the route we would take from Nashville. Beautiful area. All that is really pretty.
Absolutely.
What was your favorite turf?
Michigan by far. Yeah, no, it was easy peasy to set up an org there. It seemed as though everybody just was cranking in their turf. And it's one of those things where obviously your turf really, I've heard you say it before, your turf doesn't make a difference if you know how to sell every kind of turf. But it seemed as though we had done enough great prep on our rookies and our managers that they were geared up. They were ready to go bust loose. So that summer in Michigan, you love it because everybody's kicking ass. So yeah, that was fun.
More rapid fire questions. Like this is the section. I usually do the section towards the end, but like just
Yeah.
like boom, 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 quick, quick, quick,
Yeah.
quick. Favorite advanced sales tape.
Mark Rao. I love hearing about
Nice.
what's the dog that he talks about. I used to actually tell that story to rookies, and as if it was my story. That's so lame. But it's one of the when I sucked as a speaker and I'd have to use other people's stories. But he has that story about where he's eating paper. Come on over, check this out, that kind of thing. I love that one. It was just so funny. And he's talking about the 10 things that you can do to excel and have a 10,000 unit summer. So that was always a big hit. But I'll tell you, the other one that got me out of let's see, Tommy Dunn, how to get back on track when you successfully fallen off. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Oh
I
my
have
God,
not
it's
heard
just
this advanced sales tip.
brilliant. This guy gives 10 tips, Tommy Dunn, 10 tips on how to do the little things so that you can be giving yourself a pat on the back when instead of thinking about your results that are sucking at the moment or your experience that's sucking at the moment, it gives you the full opportunity to control what you can control and start to, if you will, even love yourself, care for yourself, self-love in the process of that. So that changed my
Ooh.
I used to do positive mental paragraphs instead of positive mental phrases because I believed that positive phrases, oh, it's gonna be a great day, was bullshit. So because that
Oh.
maybe it never was, but I had to get myself convicted on certain things. So I would say things like, oh man, these books are so amazing. They've got math from arithmetic, algebra, geometry, trig, calculus. They've got, and I list every subject in a positive phrase so that by the time I got to the door, I was like, these books are awesome, and,
Oh
and
man.
that helped me sell them. And my rookies, I had people follow me all the time. They're like, God, you're a freak. Why did you,
Oh man.
but
I've talked I don't know if you heard of this on some of the episodes you've listened to, but I've talked about this thoroughly on the show where I'm like, the one thing that I am proud of teaching my first years and the people that I recruited, my brother included, is how to do good self-talk, because it
yeah,
pissed me off when people would be like, oh, rainy days, oh, it's just liquid sunshine. It's like, that's bullshit. That's bullshit, and you don't believe that.
right.
That's like the most powerful self-talk includes self-acceptance, which means, you know what? It
Yeah,
sucks selling in the rain. And that might sound super negative, but it's not. It's just accepting the situation. You were selling
right.
books and sample books, which means paper, which is not good in water. Like they don't mix well. So a much more powerful thing to say instead of liquid sunshine is to say, hey, you know what? It sucks to sell in the rain, but it doesn't matter because I'm a stud.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
said I was going to
exactly.
work hard no matter what happens. And therefore, I'm going to work in the rain, even if it sucks, because I'm so fucking tough that I'm going to make it happen. And
Yep.
so when I'm out selling in the rain, even though it sucks, I'm even tougher than that. And I'm so good at doing this job that I can sell wet books. Like
There you
imagine
go.
how
That's
much more
awesome.
powerful is that self-talk than
Yeah,
just like,
right.
oh,
Yeah.
it's
And you're
liquid
get
sunshine. Like,
I've never heard that,
God.
but but I'll tell you this, your conviction is growing on yourself, on your
Yes.
product, on your experience, on who you're becoming, all of those things. That should be what your self-talk is really about.
Oh,
Now, I mean, there is something to everybody's getting them, everybody's getting them, that kind of thing.
yeah.
I've
Yeah,
heard how
yeah.
that can build that kind of belief in you. And I'm also for mentally visualizing what it is that you want to accomplish. There's you ever read the book Psycho Cybernetics?
Dude, you're giving me so many good books to read. Like,
Oh,
okay,
that's
hold on.
okay.
No,
Listen,
I have not.
Ritzer handed me this book, Psycho Cybernetics, and said this book will change your life, and it did. That was the book from my fourth and fifth summer that blew things up. And here's the main premise. This book is old. It was written in like 1954. There's this guy that was a plastic surgeon. His name is Maxwell Maltz, the author. He's a
Yeah.
plastic surgeon, and he started to see that even though he would change people's faces, they still wouldn't change their internal view of themselves. So he's talking about like plastic surgery of the mind in psychocybernetics. And what he did is he said, if you can visualize instead the person that you'd like to become, and in such a way, it's like you're watching a movie and you have an emotional. Oh, did I lose you? No, we're there. Oh, there you got it. Okay, you're having an emotional response to this. It makes all the difference. So like, and that's something that I do today. I still to this day, before I go to bed, and when I wake up in the morning, I rehearse, if you will, a movie in my mind of where I'm headed and where I'm becoming, because it drives the internal things. And shoot, I've got 4 things that I've written on my shitter or just outside my shitter that I see every time I'm taking a crap that tells me these things you learn in Southwestern, but it still tells me, okay, here's what I want to have for my business. And I just ran a triathlon, and it was like, it was because it was just the natural next step of things to do. But I played that movie in my mind so many times of what it's going to feel like when I've accomplished that, as if it's already happened. And so yeah, that's a hit. That's a
beautiful. I'm gonna read that next. Actually, I'm looking for a new book to read. I mean, it's kind of done with some other things I was reading, but I mean, I kind of like to jump between genres. I just got done reading Brian Greene's book called Until the End of Time, which talks about like astrophysics and like
oh wow,
so like it's a little bit more about like science and like that kind of stuff. So then I jumped to the next, which is like this is the opposite. So I think that might be.
That's brilliant.
That sounds so.
I've got this new book that I just got today that I'm fired
Oh
up to
my
read.
God, get out of here.
Stoked to read this book. No, I'm not kidding you. I was like, I seriously, Amazon. I'm like, fuck you, Amazon, because I wanted to get this like earlier in the week so that I could have a little bit more for it. But yeah, it's
just so people know if you're just listening on Apple Podcasts, you need to know what you just held up. Can you?
Yeah. So this is this amazing book. It's called The Cost of Citizenship: A Family's Battle Against Persecution and Sacrifices for Freedom. And there's this guy that wrote it about this guy. The author's name is Andres Gamboa Barrera, and I probably screwed up the way that you actually say it well, but it was like, I'm telling you, I'm thrilled to read this book.
Oh man. Oh,
Yeah.
I am honored. Thank you so
Seriously.
much. That's so great. I hope you enjoy it, man. I wish, you know what? Here's what I'll do. And I've promised this to a couple other people, but I gotta make sure I do this. I gotta send you a signed copy, and then after you read it, give that copy that you have, give it to someone that you appreciate.
For sure.
And I'll send just after we're done here, just you whatever that is, just send me.
Okay.
I would love to send you a signed copy. This is so fun. Oh man, I love that you got that. That's so cool.
All right, so here's a gift I'm gonna give to everybody. So one of the reasons why I wanted to show this too or bring this up is because I think before anybody does a podcast, they need to do pre-approach. They need to do some thoughtful, advanced work before that kind of thing. And so if it's okay, I want to give you a PDF of the top 6 things. It's actually like the cycle of selling of pre-work before you do a podcast. So I know there's probably going to be other people that might listen to this and they want to do a podcast later. They can have some tips on how to have a great podcast. Would that be cool if I share that with you guys?
Yeah, please. Actually, listen, I have to go take a tinkle really quick, but I will still be able to listen to you. I'm going to take myself off screen while you share this. But yes, absolutely. Please share. Go ahead. It's gonna be mainly you on camera. I hope you're comfortable.
Oh, great. No, that's awesome. Is there possibility to pull up that that sheet for that?
Amy's got it. Amy's got it. There it is, right there for you.
Awesome.
There it is. I'm still able to hear you, but go ahead. I'll be right back.
Tinkle away. I hope to hear the tinkle. No, that's
no. It'll be once you're off screen, you're muted, so you're all good.
All right, perfect. Well, listen, for everybody that is just listening along, here's the idea. It's if you show up for a podcast and I'm so grateful for Andres for putting together a platform for people to be able to share what's going on and hear these awesome stories. Here's one of the things I think is so cool is that if you're, even if you just finished one summer, you get this opportunity to re-engage into something that maybe your wife doesn't know anything about. And you're like, yeah, I did this Southwestern thing. So anyway, I think if you're going to be on this show, we owe it to people to be able to give them a good show. And so here's 6 tips. One has to do with, like I said, the cycle of selling. Here's pre-approach. So the big idea, and if you're able to see this on YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening online or on podcast, but the idea of pre-approach is that you need to do your research before you do it. I listened to about 10 of the Ponytails podcast, and I subscribed. I was like, this is awesome. He's doing a great job. So, but do your research. And that's why I got this book, The Cost of Citizenship, is because I wanted to learn a little bit more about Andreas, and I wanted to learn about, so we could have a great conversation. The second piece is have a great introduction. In other words, prepare your stories because, as I was going through, I was like, gosh, what are some great stories that I could share with people? Now, I'm a speaker. It's natural for me to have these things already curated, but it's a good idea. Because I think the worst thing that you could do is when Andreas walks in and says, the first question is always, so what are you up to now? And if you said, well, hey, I sell widgets and I work with the XYZ company selling widgets. And then he's like left, well, what do I do now? You're maybe not as helpful for him setting him up. So anyway, that's the second thing. Third thing is you create a buying atmosphere. And I'm not talking about this. Now, I'm not saying that you should pitch or sell things really on a podcast like this. That's kind of bad form. But what I do mean is create a buying atmosphere and open for everybody. Be authentic. Be open to ready to digress in the story. Share about your life and different things. Here's the fourth thing: is give a demo. And again, that is all about you and stories and stories and stories. That makes that valuable. Fifth thing, thank you, Amy. Oh, here, by the way, on the fourth thing, giving a lot of stories on this PDF that hopefully he's going to put in the show notes or some way that you can be able to get it, because I want everybody to be able to have this. I laid out about 6 or 7 different things for your stories that you can give. One is have a setup for every story that you're going to share. 2 is have the meat, what you're going to talk about. And then 3 is have a close. Now, there's lots of other pieces you could do that I talk about in there. And here's the last thing, or 2 more: price. So add value to the product through wisdom and humor. And my humor is not that great. I still got a lot to do on that, a lot to work on that. Andreas, man, as a comedian, you'll help me out. But one of the things that I didn't point out before that is worth taking a look at is that there's a link there to the 9 steps that you can take for developing wisdom and humor with your own stories. So it's a YouTube link of just a video that I put together that might be of value to any of the listeners. If you want to be a speaker someday, if you want to develop that, that's something that you can check into. And then the final thing is closing. And I wrote down, thank your guest. That's wrong. Thank your host, because what Andreas is doing is awesome by giving us a voice and giving a chance for everybody to share these stories that are of the lengthy memories from long, long ago. And man, I'm super grateful. It's super cool. And you peed, and I did all of that in your pee time. There we go.
That was a solid bathroom break. Thank you so First of all, thank you so much for that. Thank you for being comfortable with doing that. When you go this long, we've been on for 2 hours and 60 minutes, but drinking lots of tequila and liquid.
Yeah.
So, you tend to, I usually can hold it, but dang, man, I don't know what happened this time. Usually, like we went with Pedro Vega and I didn't pee for 4 hours and I didn't pee the whole time. But something, I should probably, and I did go before he started. So I don't know what the heck.
I've got a super tiny bladder. So it's like, that's me too.
Today was the day.
Do you want me to take my pee break? Is that how we should roll, or
it's your call if you need to go again. If you need to go again, but I still have some questions for you about your experience, and I want to get to those stories. So, but if you gotta go. I got plenty of space to fill in with ads. So just let me know when you.
Is it okay with you? Because I tell you, my stories are always better when I'm empty bladder. All right, I'll be right back.
Go for it. I'll talk a little bit about some shout outs with some of our friends here on the show. Yeah, I should probably mention, and I'll wait till Tony gets back about some of the stuff he just shared. That's really cool that he put that together beforehand. Because here's the thing, guys, like we started a year and a half ago, and this was just a hobby. So if you're listening, and you're a fan, I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so thankful for you to be listening to our show. It was just a thing that we did while we were bored during COVID. So the fact that you guys are still here really means a lot to me and to the team. But I gotta say, this isn't. I thank you, Tony, for pointing out some of the hard work and some of the time that we spent doing this. But it's not me, just myself, and I do appreciate and I do recognize that I have worked really hard, and I learned a lot of those principles of hard work through this program, but it's not me. It's a team effort, and um, couldn't do it without the people that are involved with this. Nick Taverdi was with me since the beginning, has been uh, learning and growing through this process with us as we've learned how to make the show better and better for everyone, and has become such a cool asset to our team as far as helping us with recognizing our friends here on the show. And so I wanted to give a quick shout out to EnLight.Energy, who actually was the first company ran or operated by or in relation to an alumni who decided to say, hey, you know what, I believe in what you're doing and I want to invest in you and what you guys are doing. And so EnLight.Energy is a solar company. And if you guys are out there listening and you have a passion for the planet, you want to earn some good money and you want to work with someone like Nick, and have the privilege to work with someone like Nick, or Julio Hernandez or Alex Black, let's see how you can join EnLight.Energy. It's a fantastic opportunity, and they are able to work with anybody all over the United States. They have a market pretty much everywhere. So get in touch with us. Solid income. I think a sale every other week is enough to earn you six figures. That's how lucrative solar is right now, and you're actually helping people save some money. So make sure you join us for that. And that's EnLight.Energy. We'll talk about more of our friends here on the show once we get to the ponytails, but I'm gonna bring Tony back up on the stream. And there you are, sir. And I want to say thank you so much for what you shared. With that, that's something that you for people to understand. That's something that you put together on your own before you come on the show, and you shared with us like, hey, this is something that you should send your guests. And honestly, that's a great thing for us to have as an asset, to be able to send our guests to help them prepare for what it's like to be on the show, because we're just trying to do our best here. Again, like I said, if you go back to listen to Meredith Gardner's episode, you can listen to Nick saying, Andres, we have no idea what we're doing, how to go live on YouTube. And so that's back when we had no idea. And we've spent, and I don't want to say I, because it's really been a team effort. Like, we have spent so much time investing in ourselves, from a standpoint, and sometimes financially, uh, on making sure this is a better experience, not just for our guests, but for our fans. And so if you're listening, thank you so mumuch for supporting, and to our guests that have been on the show. We're at this point 140 some odd episodes in, and it's like, it does, nobody wants to hear me talk for 2 hours. I don't want to hear me talk for 2 hours. So the fact that, like, our guests are willing to pour into us and to share this kind of wisdom in this format is such a cool thing. So thank you so much, Tony, for the praise. I accept the praise. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you recognize the hard work, but I also, again, like I said, it can't be done without the team. Naomi Kaufman, Heather Dutton, Julianne Gamboa, Amy Lester, Nick Taverdi, and Josh Wheeler. We have a team of 7 people now. That's awesome. It's grown to, and they're all doing different aspects, and they're all willingly and lovingly pouring into the show to grow. And it's been such a cool thing. So while I accept praise, thank you so much, and it makes me feel good, I also want to pass it on to our team, because it's not just me. I mean, hell, if I was on my own, I'd be so much further behind. And so
well, thanks to all of you for doing it, because it's such an it's an amazing service. It's really cool. Yeah,
I'm glad you think so, man. That's so cool. So okay, hold on. Okay, this is great. This is such a fun episode. So you had some stories written down that you definitely wanted to get to besides ponytails. So I want to make sure that the ponytails are always the best ones. But of course, this is a great time to open up about, you have 7 summers worth of stories, and you had some written down. I want to open up the mic to you to kind of share with us some of the lessons, fun things, or crazy stories that you have before we get to ponytails, to kind of really talk about it, and then we can kind of navigate those conversations as they come based on the story. So Mike is yours, my friend.
That's great. No, I appreciate that. I only have one other thing that I was thinking about, because, and again, that's just a great lesson. Think about things before you're going to say it. And I had one other that I thought about sharing, and it's interesting. It's like, if we ever get to the point where we've drank enough tequila and we're getting, a little sentimental, here's, I could share this and put this out.
Are we there?
How do you feel? You feeling there? You feel there?
I'm there. Yeah, for sure, man. I feel like that even without tequila, just so you know. But let's do it.
Well, okay. So let me frame it up this way. How many memories, Andres, do you have from when you were 3 years old?
Not many, if any. I don't know. I'd have to really think. I don't know how old I was from the earliest one, but probably none.
All right. So when I was small enough to sit on other people's laps, I learned how to spell the name of the most powerful being in the universe. And his name has 3 letters. And I used to say, it has this many, and those letters are spelled like this. Ready? DAD. Now I know we kind of have that in common, that just oh, my dad, that kind of thing. Right. And yeah. So my dad he was the most powerful being in the universe. And he could lift me with one hand in my, from the suspenders of my Oshkosh Pagoshes. Did you ever hear of those? You know what
Nice.
those are?
Minnesota. Oh yeah, that's a Minnesota brand right there. They make great
Yeah.
shoes and great clothing for kids. Absolutely, I know what that is.
Yeah. And then he could catch me with the other hand if the suspenders broke, that kind of thing. And but by the time I was 4, my parents were split, and I would go over to his house, and he would have these. I saw him once with these massive yellow bags of rock salt. Do you have that for your house, or the water softener, that kind of thing? And
sorry, on a tangent there, I found out how privileged white people are. No offense, United States people are. When I found out what water softener was, my brother told me that after he bought his first property. I'm like, what the hell is this thing? Is that like a cooler for like your AC? And he's like, no, that's a water softener. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean a water softener? He's like, yeah. It's if water's too hard, you gotta soften it. We cleaned ourselves in the alberca sometimes in Colombia.
What does that
like
mean?
so it's like this, like it's where you kind of did laundry, but it was like a giant sink, and you would dunk your kid in there and like wash him sometimes because you didn't have a shower. So so yes, I found out what water softeners are. So to make that long story short, but yes.
Well, do you mind if you don't mind me segueing, just tangenting a little bit, is because I think this is valuable. When I was in Albania, I was in this town called Erseka. Now you can look that up. It's just north of Greece, and the Greek Albania border. And Erseka is where they had a camp for refugees during the Yugoslavian War in 1999, that kind of thing. And this camp became one of the camps that we would go to afterwards with the kids. But I was walking around the town, and I met this woman when I was there. And she said to me, I went to America. And I was like, oh, awesome. How's your experience? She says, I was there for a week for an exchange. And when I started crying on my second day. I said, why? She says, because I took a shower and they got mad at me. What are you talking about? So what happened is she would turn the water on for the shower, get herself wet, and then she would turn it off and wash herself. And then she would turn it on again to rinse herself, so that she only used, probably like a gallon of water total in this. And she just didn't feel like she could possibly take one of these showers. There's Erseka. Yeah, there you go. Oh, you're close. Yeah, that's actually the camp right there, Crossroads Camp in Erseka, that you're seeing, that we would have. That was and the director of this camp is one of the most amazing men I've ever met. His name is Mark, and shout out to Mark. There's stories I could tell about Mark, but probably not my story to tell. Anyway,
story for another time.
Yeah, story for another time. So when we when she came back, she said, and we went to the Olive Garden, and they gave free bread, and I ate all of the bread, and the girl that I was with, she ordered lasagna and only ate half of it and didn't take it home. And she said, I just don't understand you Americans. And I think there's something to really, if you travel, you get that. I was walking around with my friend Bledy and Yori. And Bledy was telling me, as we see this structure that looks like a pig house, in the South, except it's a little bit bigger. And I go, what is that? He says, it's a bunker. And a bunker is what during the war, they would shoot out of it with a machine gun. And it was made of concrete. And I can only imagine the machine gun, how loud it would be in the concrete structure as they're shooting and killing other people. And it's like, it's just the world that we have in the United States. And I can't wait to read your book, because it's got to give some semblance of that common, the experience of people that have struggled to get to where they are, and the extraordinary story of where that is. So anyway, sorry, that was a wild tangent.
No, that was great. That was great. Don't worry. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for that.
my dad, he would open up the rock salt, and then he would say to me, he's like, Tony, you got to stand back because I don't want you to breathe in any of the rock salt. And then with one hand, he'd pour this thing in. And I'm like, my dad's the greatest. And then my dad would also, right? He would also
Yeah.
take out a knife and he would cut all of the hairs off his face with a knife. Now it said Bic on the side, but to me as like a 4 or 5 year old kid, this guy's taking out a knife and cutting the hair off his face. He's just that tough. And so here's shoot. When I was about 25 years old, and just as I was not being a sales manager anymore, and at 26, I left being a sales manager. It was right about that time that my dad decided that because of a family dispute that we're going to kind of cut off communication, and it lasted for 10 years. And gosh, it affected me. It would be a good like a year of it not being a big deal, and then all of a sudden I have this weird sobbing event or something. I'm mowing the lawn or something like that, and it just comes out. I had this spiritual advisor. His name is Bryce Eichler Smith, this Lutheran pastor, and man, he used to swear. He was so fun. He'd be like, "Fuck, Tony, can't you just let it go?" And that kind of thing. But I was at a loss at figuring out how I could actually deal with this. So when I turned 35, which was a little over 10 years ago, my dad and I started to reconnect. But he initiated it, and so I was nervous about this, and I had to make a choice after dealing with some emotions of how am I going to do this. And this is a point for your listeners: is I had to choose how this relationship was going to be from this point forward. Because I can't control my feelings, but I can choose how I relate to those feelings. And right, I could try to mute them.
Gold. Oh, it's gold.
Yeah, I could try to mute these feelings or escape from them, but or I could face them head on in a healthy way. And so what happened is he started writing me. I wrote him back, and I had a choice, and I chose two things. I made a commitment. We talked about commitment earlier. I committed to 2 ways that I would be generous and I would be frank in all of our conversations. Frank, honest, meaning that I was going to tell him what I felt. I had nothing to lose. I was a man at this point, wife and kids, and that was how I was going to be. So with frankness and generosity, I mailed letters to him, and that became phone calls. And I'll tell you, it's the coolest thing. I talk with my dad now every Sunday for like 2 hours. And here's the thing that I didn't think about, and this is on relationships. While I was growing and becoming the person I was going to be, he was also growing and becoming the person that he was going to be independently. And sometimes there's that great blessing of that being able to happen. So, yeah, it's, I know that
that hits in the dad feels right here. Like there's dad feels that we all have. It's like, ooh, dad feels.
Yeah. So I moved to Austin, and I'm now about 40 minutes from him because there might be a day as he's getting older that I will be the one to open up the rock salt bag and to pour it in. And maybe there'll be a day where I have to take out a razor and scrape the hairs off of his face. And every time I get pretty emotional, thinking about that. So.
Dude, why you gotta say that, man? I just thought about that today, man. I had a friend on Instagram post about how our parents become our kids.
Yeah, right.
And
It's
the
cycle of life.
Dad feel. I had this dad feel. I'm like, I'm not ready to like tell my dad to wear a diaper. Like, I want my dad to be a stud the whole time, but they will die. They end up. Sorry, that's a fact of life. That's rough to say, but in an ideal world, you're gonna watch your parents die, and that's not something I'm ready for. But
right, no,
man.
Absolutely. It's and there's a whole lot of logistics of everything like that. And forgive me, you're a little bit younger, I think. What are you 22, 23? No, just kidding.
I'm 29.
29.
Yeah, but still young. Like I wouldn't consider myself old. Like Yesterday, so, recently, I should say recently. This is gonna air in August, but we're recording just past July 4th. And yesterday, I had a, I was with my, I was with my wife's family, and my sister-in-law was like, "Hey, can you go watch our kids light fireworks because they need some sort of adult supervision?" And in my head, I remember thinking, I'm not an adult. I'm 29. Like, I'm like, like, but then
That's
I'm like, oh
great.
yeah, that's right. That is an adult. Shit. Like, I'm an adult in a lot of ways, but still, like in my head, I'm still feel so young
Yeah.
because I am. Like,
All
29 is
right.
not that old. 30 is not that old, you know. And so it's like, it was just funny. She's like, all right, only if you have adult supervision. So he asked me, and there was a little bit of me that was like, dude, I'm I, I'm probably not the right person to be watching this, because if your hands blew up, I still probably wouldn't know what the hell to do. Like, I'm not. Who's thinking I'm an adult? You know. On the other hand, yes, of course I'm an adult. But it's just a funny, like, weird dichotomy of like,
Right.
honestly, who knows?
Right. Well,
I'm still pretty young.
well, here's the thing. I mean, you've heard about biological age as compared to,
Yeah,
people's actual
mental age.
age. Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's a lot of people that are in their 60s and 70s. Like I say, in this triathlon that I just did, there was a guy that, I'm not kidding you, he beat me at 68 years old. And I was like, you're amazing. It's ridiculous.
Unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah. So,
honestly, like, like young and old is so relative. Like, I've met people who are 25 who I'm
mhm.
like, dude, you're acting like a 6-year-old. Get over it. Like, move on. On the other hand, I met people who are 55, and I'm like, are you really
Yeah.
acting like a 12-year-old right now? Like, the mental age is such an important thing. Like, I feel in my head, I feel like I'm still 24. I think that's where I'm at, where I'm like, I still have a lot of time ahead of me,
Yeah.
and I think that might change once I have kids or whatever, but like, and it just kind of like those phases in life that really like change you. But like right now, I'm like, okay, I'm still young. I got plenty of time. I can still run. I can still play soccer, yada, yada. But it was, something's going to happen where it's just all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm 37
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
like it's
Hey,
just
by the
such a
way,
weird.
short digress. I know you're a Manchester United fan, and I went to Barcelona about just before COVID hit to go watch Messi play with. Well,
Get
it
out
was
of
such a
here.
phenomenal experience. Yeah, I took my whole family. It was a bucket list thing, and I've played soccer since I was 4, so it was extraordinary to live in Europe and get a chance to experience that. That's here's a super quick story. The first time, and
Yes.
this is
Oh my
for people
God.
that don't know the joys of soccer. If you're a big football fan, just hit fast forward for 30 seconds. But as in American football. But if you're a soccer fan, or if you're not so sure, if you're on the fence, if you could be swayed, check this
Wow.
out. The first time I took my wife to a soccer game ever, we were in Rome, and we were backpacking through Rome trying to figure out if we were going to marry each other. And so we get to the stadium, and I'm like, there's a game tonight. It was Lazio playing AC Milan, her first game ever. And she doesn't know anything about soccer. I'm teaching
No.
her what offsides is. And so when we go and sit now in the stadium, which was the Olympic Stadium, 86,000 people, it's set up with in a big
Yep.
oval, and on every other stair or surrounding the away section was a guy with a machine gun. And then on the other side of the away section was a glass wall that was 10 feet
Yeah.
tall. And I
Yeah.
was like, where are we? This is amazing. So we sat in the home section near that. Score at the end of the game, Andres, it was 4-4, which as a soccer player is a great game.
That's a
And
lot.
the first,
That's a great game.
yeah. So the first goal, what happened is we didn't know to jockey with the crowd, and they bum rushed toward the away team, kind of giving the, and swearing, and they were serving shots at the game. By the way, it was just ridiculous. And so I'm lying on the ground on top of my wife because we got pushed down doing a push-up. People are standing on my backs, yelling obscenities in Italian. We get up, she's crying. I go, are you okay? Do you want to stay? I'm like, please say yes, please say yes. And she goes, yeah, I'm okay. Let's stay. And like I say, 4-4, what an experience. And so she's ruined for life to be able to see just such brilliance. But
What what a place.
yeah,
And you saw
yeah.
Messi play. I mean, I was in Barcelona 2017, and I saw him play at the Barcelona Stadium Camp Nou,
Oh
and I was
wow,
like, this is,
the
I mean,
Bernabeu
I
Camp now.
I could get stabbed on the way out of here and be like, you know what? It was a good life. We did great.
Yeah.
We made it this far. You know
Yeah.
what? See you guys. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
To watch someone do, it's like watching Mozart play. Like if you were like,
It
hey,
really
listen,
is.
I
Yeah.
have a time machine. It's gonna cost $50,000, but you're gonna get to go walk back in time and watch Mozart play piano while he's Mozart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you
No,
do that? Yes,
that's a
you would
brilliant
do that.
analogy. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know it's literally not hyperbolic. It is like nobody has done what he has. Like he is to soccer what Mozart was to music. It's just like timeless. Like there will not be, even if someone that comes along that's better than him, like he will still be in history as a person that was like, hey, out of this thing that most of the people in the world try to do, you are the best that's ever has done it.
Yeah.
And
He's a
there's
virtuoso.
greatness,
Yeah.
like the greatness that comes along with being able to do something like that is just like how do you, like it's just respect, and an incredible privilege to have watched something like that happen. I don't know how we got
So
on this
true.
tangent, but just
Sorry.
such an
That was
amazing.
me. I
Yeah,
took us
no,
there.
this is
Sorry about that.
no, man. Like,
Yeah.
listen, this is our conversation. If people get bored and quit on this conversation at this point, yeah, fuck. No offense.
Yeah.
Love you, fans. You
No,
guys are great, but honestly, like the point is to talk about greatness and to talk about what we want to talk about. So it's all good.
Hey, well, I mean, people stick around for the ponytails. I mean, I'm about to.
That's right, sir.
I'm ready for them. But I mean, I think that's what people stick for too. It's a great closing to go. Oh, these stories of what people have done. Yeah, it's and
Yeah.
humor is so value. So okay, William James. Do you know who that is? He's a psychologist and an author from like 1904 or so. I don't know. I you might look it up and find better. I can't remember but he has this
William
quote.
James.
I just know the quote. He says, "We don't laugh because we're happy. We're happy because we laugh."
Ooh,
I like
ooh,
that.
ooh, ooh. Go back
So
to making back a full circle on that comedy stand-up bit
yeah.
that we talked about earlier, right there.
Well, and humor is actually a character trait. Now, the funny thing of it is, it's not producing humor. It's the comedy or the character trait comes in being able to be humorous or enjoy humor and being able to laugh at a situation. Because I mean, think about it. If you're selling books or selling solar panels or you're selling insurance or whatever it might be, if you're able to laugh at different situations, it gives you a boost that can help you rock for another 6 hours, another 6 days, or different things like that. And one of my favorite guys selling books was a guy named Rich Strobel. And gosh, Rich, I hope you hear this because kudos to you. You just he has such an amazing ability to find humor in everything. Do you know somebody like that, Andres? It's just humorous.
I would probably say Dylan Barr, one of our sponsors, and they have another buddy named Keon Asgarpour, who is just like, no matter what's going on, he's like, oh, and then he'll just say something like, of course,
Yeah.
you made it funny. Yeah.
Every time you say Dylan Barr, I think you're about to say Dylan Buck, but that's a different.
Also
Dylan.
a great human. Yeah.
Oh
Great
my
human
God, he's
as
an
well.
amazing
Yeah.
human. I love that guy. Yeah. I was just
what the heck? We gotta get. I forgot. You just remember me. I texted
get
him
him on.
about being on the show, and I forgot to follow up with him. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I was just at a wedding with a number of book guys were there, and he was there. So
he's great. Like Dylan is like a
awesome.
top notch human. Like not to relate.
That's a great way of saying it. There's not a better way to say it.
Really solid, really solid human. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I could speak his praises for a while.
Unbelievable. Dang it. Okay. So ponytails. Are we ready for ponytails?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So let me give a quick shout out to a couple other alumni doing some cool things that are working with us. And yeah, absolutely. So first off, VDisain, Oscar and Oliver. So Oscar Koi and Oliver Reynes, they are the masterminds behind our website. So if you own a business, you want to have an effective presence online, of course, you can go do it for cheap, yada, 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 get your basic landing page. No, I'm talking about like if you want to have a website that's like has all the integrations, has a store, has some stuff that like really creating a funnel for yourself, like really using a website for what it's supposed to, these are the guys you need to go talk to. Instead of spending 25-50 grand for all these different landing pages, they're going to do it for you for literally a fraction of the cost, because they're in Estonia and they want to help out book people. And so get on hold of them to learn a little bit more about that. And then the last little bit about Cardinal. They've been giving us a bunch of tips on networking, overcoming challenges, but wanted to give a big shout out to what they're doing, because this is how it's working. And this is a little bit of a plug for us as well as to why you should consider working with us as being a partner with us. So when Cardinal Senior Benefits started working with us, they had 27 former book people, and they currently have 31. So 4 people have come because they listened to them, that listened to our show and said, "Hey, I want to work with them." They've been able to recruit 4 people because of us, which is such a cool thing that we're able to do. I'm so glad that we're able to like help other alumni succeed because of the things that we're doing here on the show. So one of the main reasons that Southwestern alumni have come on board with them is because, of course, they were able to take some of the cool things about Southwestern's culture, which is like the camaraderie, the hands-on training, having fun, and the growth. And they removed all the bad parts, which is kind of like the cold calling, the 80 hours a week, the lack of flexibility over the summer. And so took all the bad, kept all the good. So if you guys are interested, they're top agents. Like if you're one of their top agents, there's no way you're making anywhere below 15 to 12K or 12 to 15K a week, and averaging about 31 to 34 hours of work a week. That's what their top guys and top gals are doing. So we mentioned it before. They're on a growth mode. They've grown every year since they started in 2018. They're looking to double again in 2022 and are on pace. So if you want to find out a little bit more about why former broke people are joining their cause and joining their team, go ahead and refer yourself or a friend. We can't promise you a job. Of course, we can promise you an interview with them. And there's a $500 referral bonus. So if anyone that you recommend gets hired or you yourself get hired, there's a $500 check coming towards towards you. So make sure you get a hold of that. There's a link that you can click on below. Otherwise, if there's no link live or the link isn't working, just message us on Instagram, Facebook, me, whatever. Find me on Instagram or on Facebook, and I'll get you guys in touch with the right people. So those are our friends here at the show, and those are we love, because we wanted to keep it to all our partners being people who sold books or were connected to Southwestern in some way, to the alumni community in some way, and we are able to do that. So that's so cool. I'm able to feed my dogs through that, which is sweet. So yeah, absolutely. All right, but anyway, okay, so
That's
it's
awesome.
time for some ponytails. Um, and I'm so excited. I mean, this has been such a fun episode, my man. And
Yeah, man.
I'm sure there's plenty more
I
stuff we
feel
could
that
still
too.
talk about. So by the way, please come back anytime. Just let me know when you want to come back on the show. I'll have you anytime. Honestly, just
Awesome.
literally
Awesome.
just email Amy and be like, "Hey, let's talk again." I'm like, "All right, cool." And we'll talk about other stuff or just more fun entrepreneurial things, because we didn't even get to touch on some of the entrepreneurial lessons that but yeah, pony stories are yours. Ponytails are yours.
All
This
right.
is just so people, if this is your first episode and you made it this far, basically what this means is these are some of the favorite stories that Tony has from his experience selling books and some of the best lessons that he's learned since then. Um, we've had a variety of things, which is some crazy stories about people doing all sorts of fun or crazy stuff during like the company trips, or a time that they had a really amazing lesson that they learned in life. We leave it open, and it's an open mic, essentially comedy. Haha. But this is your time to shine. Let us know. It could be one story, it could be 6 stories. I don't know. The mic is yours, my friend. Let us
Well,
know.
also, I got a couple of stories. I think I've got maybe two, maybe three stories. I think remember I mentioned about an echo. I've got two stories in an echo. So the echo has the same principle, but not 100% a book story. Is that okay if I add that in, because it has all of that
Yes,
to go with it? So
totally cool.
all right. So listen, this first story I owe a lot to my roommate, and who was an all-around role model for me, just a great guy. His name's Mike Lippert. And shout out to Mike. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He became a DSL.
No.
I mean, my roommate my first summer also became a DSL. It's ridiculous. And he was probably the funniest or funnest person, and also one of the most hardworking people, that had huge integrity and accountability. And he was almost, as I was he sold like 3,400 units or something like that his first summer. I sold 1,700, and he was almost like a manager to me while we were in the HQ together. And I remember that it was like, and he's a driver. He's very much type A. And so I was like,
Mm.
all right, I can't be negative around Mike. And I took it really seriously. Remember, I said I was Sammy Southwestern. So I was like, I can't be negative. And it was probably week 2, maybe week 3. I had my worst day ever. Now, I drove a car. Mike rode a bike, and he got a Trek bike, a really nice bike it was not a Brookfield bike. And he had to take the wheel off the back of the bike in order to fit it into the back of my trunk of my car. And we had kind of a pact that as soon as we got in the car together, we were going to be positive. But I had, like a Lee McCroskey dirt pile day. Mine was an anthill day. And I was like crushing ants with my thumb. It was just, I was like, this fucking sucks. Die, ant. That kind of thing. And
taking the aggression out on something else.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm driving to pick him up. I'd probably cut off early, and I'm thinking to myself, we stopped at a place called the Arboretum, and it was a big parking lot. And I'm like, how can I be positive for Mike? How can I be positive? I got to be positive. What can I do? I know. I'll get naked. So I'm driving to the Arboretum, and I start taking off my clothes, right? And have you ever done this, taking off your clothes in a car? Like I take get one arm out, another arm, and then you got to real fast as you get your head out, right? And I'm like, oh man. So I get there, and I'm there. I swear to God, I'm there at like 9:35 because it was just that kind of day, right? But Mike, he had heard something at the Sunday meeting about setting up appointments at 9:30 and 10 o'clock. So he shows up at 10:30, and I'm naked in my car for an hour. And I'm like, oh God, please no cops, because I'd be really screwed.
That's going straight to jail type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck? So Mike pulls up on his bike, and I see him coming around, and he's like, hey, how's your day? He's all excited because I know he had a great day. And I was like, hey, Mike, and he's like, hey, you want to help me get my bike in the back of the car? And I'm like, no, I'm good. And I audibly heard him say as he drove by, dick. And you didn't know what he was saying. But anyway, so he takes the wheel off the bike. He puts it in the back of the car, and he comes around to the side, and he sees that I'm buck naked in the driver's seat. He's like, oh, no. And he takes his hat, and he chucks it, throws it, and it lands directly in that spot.
But making you feel comfortable because you used to cover your balls.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Great callback to the grabbing my balls. Yeah. So he throws his hat, it lands right there, and then he looks me square and he goes, that's how you handle a rough day, fucker. And we laughed all the way home.
That's great. That's a great story.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'll tell you this. Another ponytail story, and this is the one that has a little bit of an echo to it. This is my favorite story. There was a girl named Julie. It was Julie Buchholz at the time. Now it's Julie Bauer, and she's awesome. She was one of my rock star rookies, and just super fun, very teachable and coachable and serious. But at the same time, really grew and had a great first summer, second, third, however many years she sold. But anyway, so one day she's following me, and I think it's got to be towards the early parts of the summer. And we come across this little boy, this beautiful little boy, probably 6 years old, that has Down syndrome. And now she, again, like I say, she's super teachable, super serious. So the whole time, she's looking in the corner of my eye. You know how you teach rookies? Look in the corner of my eye during the whole demonstration so that she's focusing on you and not detracting the attention of Mrs. Jones, right? So there's this little boy, and I'm like, this is going to be great. We're going to have a good time with this. And he had so much joy. And what he would do is he would walk up to everybody that was new, and he'd make this face. Now, this is not going to be helpful for people that are listening on the podcast, but he would do like this, and he'd make this face that was really stern, sticking his lips out. His eyes were really big and everything like that. Like I'm just in your face right now. And he just wanted to get your attention. And then he would walk away going like, clapping, like, I did it. I got your attention. I broke whatever attention that's going on in the room. I won. And as a bookseller, you're trying to laser beam in on Mrs. Jones and that kind of thing. and this kid had the business. Well, he tries this on Julie. Now, Julie, she's looking in the corner of my eye and she just won't budge. She's just like, I'm not going to change my gaze because I've been trained that no matter what happens, I'm going to look in the corner of my student manager's eye. And so he walks up and he's like, he gives this face and he's totally into her business, and he gets a little closer. And finally, he just takes his right finger and jabs it straight up his nose. And he just digs around in his nose for a little bit, and he snaps off this awesome booger, like big old booger.
Oh, no.
He walks over to Julie and he wipes it all over on her, like her pant leg and everything like that. He gets her attention and she walks away.
No,
it is so perfect. Oh man. No, it's so perfect.
And of course this happens in the book field.
So Andres, I'm in the middle of writing a book. I wish I had one as fulfilled as yours at this point. It's one of those, I have more life experiences I got to figure out, but it goes through this kind of genre. And the genre is that in my 20s, it seemed as though life was all about developing success. Maybe my late teens and 20s. But then later, it was more about being significant. And what could it be like for me to make a difference with other people and have significance? And that lasted for a while. But this was the first vision of what would it be like. The third, I guess, if you will, the third stage of life as I've gotten older is what would it be like to be just present, to be fully present with every situation I'm in. And that's, so success to significance to presence. And this was the first touch of presence that made a difference. And so, like I said, that it had a little bit of an echo. So I'm going to share with you just kind of like the long version of how that made a big impact in my life. And when I was 16 years old, now I don't know what it was like for you at 16, but for when I was 16, I had these raging hormones. I had this enormous ego, and I had a checklist of insecurities that was like a mile long. That was me at 16.
Relatable, 100%. Yeah.
Right. And my parents decided that they were going to send me to this Christian camp. Right. And while I was sitting there, there was this speaker that said that Jesus said that I could have life to the full. That was the phrase, life to the full. Have you ever heard that before? That phrase, life to the full?
Yeah.
So I heard this and I was like, oh, I want that. And I went into college chasing after life to the full. And, I think drew me into selling books. How more full of a life can you have than 80 hours a work week, straight commission, no guarantees, that kind of thing. I remember very vividly sitting in sales school, and it triggered the life to the full thing. I remember hearing Mort Utley live in sales school. Maybe it was on video. Maybe it was so good. It was on video. I don't know how old I am, and I remember him saying this. He said, if you get what you want out of the summer, you've got to value your time. He said, I could spend $1 and I could earn it back. I could, what did he say? He said something like, he said something about wasting something and he could destroy a piece of property and he could build it again. But if I waste a single hour of my time, I'll never give it back for the rest of my life. And I was like, oh my God, that's life to the full. I'm totally, I'm sucked in. And I think my first week of selling books, I worked 81 hours that week. I think I had somewhere in the neighborhood, my personal profit after expenses was like $144. And then I I did the math and I'm like, oh shit, that's $1.77 an hour.
That's bad even in the 90s. Like, you don't even have to account inflation. You already know that's bad. Like,
right.
Not good.
But you know what my response was? My response was, I gotta work harder. So it was nice. That's how you think when you're on the book field. Well, so thankfully, Bookfield grew, got better, that kind of thing. But it was 2005 that I left it for Young Life, because what happened is the truth is that I hadn't figured out, like other book people, how other sales managers, that is, how to have a great marriage. And I remember my wife saying to me, and maintaining being a sales manager.
But that's a whole episode on that alone, my friend.
I'll come back. We'll talk about that sometime. Yeah. But there was a time when I was in Rhode Island and I'd been gone for 3 weeks straight, and it was typical. And she looked at me, or she on the phone, she says, I didn't expect that my first year of marriage was going to be like this. And I knew that was the conversation that I needed to move on. And so I thought, well, I'm going to find something that's going to require less of me. Oh, I know. Youth ministry.
Right.
Which is, it's kind of a joke, because, wherever you go, there you are.
My God.
And they told me this, so I did that for 10 years. And then after 10 years, I heard there's an opportunity to do this and develop Young Life in 14 countries in Southeastern Europe. So I went to a training school, just like sales school. And instead of motivating with motivational speakers, they said this line, and it was so impactful. It said, when you expand to greater things, your cracks become canyons. Think about that for a sec. When you expand to greater things, your cracks become canyons. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So,
wow.
I'm bringing my whole self to this experience in Bulgaria. And I'm still trying to figure out, is this going to be the death of me? Is this going to ruin me? Or am I finally going to learn about this life to the full that I've been searching after all this time? So I get in Bulgaria and I meet this guy. His name is Rengel Mithkov. And Rengel is Roma. Have you ever heard of that? Roma, that term?
No.
So Roma is like, it's a polite way of saying gypsy. In Bulgarian, they would call that a gypsy, or somebody that it's a lower class almost.
Yeah.
And this guy, he grew up poor, and I mean hungry poor, but somehow he came out of it full. And so Rengel he ended up becoming the first person that I'd hire. And I saw him, I met him at a cafe, and it seemed as though, all of the people at the cafe knew him and had laughter and conversations with him. And it seemed like they were laughing at me for part of it. I couldn't understand why. Finally, he says to me, Tony, I want to take you to the kids that I work to. And this is where it comes full circle. He meant work with, but he said work to. So we go to this orphanage where there are 22 kids with severe disabilities. Ones like, you and I might have never seen before. And Rengel, all of them greet him with such glee and joy. And he says to him, we start playing this game. And the game is where you lift your arms up and down with the kids. And this one volunteer comes up to me and says, Tony, you've got to be careful when you raise their arms up and down, because they're malnourished and their ligaments and bones might break or stretch or something like that. I mean, that's where I was. So after about 20 minutes of these little games, Rengel gathers them around to do a craft. And then he tells this story during this time and calls them out by name. And he's like, Alacho Bog te obicha. And he translated for me, that means God loves you. And then he'd say, Raya Bog te obicha, meaning God loves you. And I'm watching these kids soak this in, and they're just the glee. And the thing that really caught me is, if these kids who have done nothing to deserve this can accept this grace, maybe I could too. So, yeah. So,
you're going to drop it like this on me 2-3 hours in, Tony? Dang.
I tell you, man.
Wow.
Life changing to go, man, I can and what I've found is, whether it has to do with production for sales or recruiting or whatever you're doing, if you can accept that you're fully okay just as you are, if you don't need anything more, then you can work from, you can create from a sense of security that needs nothing else. And that was my goal. So I know it doesn't have the humor
Bulletproof.
of others, but that was my goal.
No, that is some gold right there. That is probably look, we've had so many lessons throughout this episode, 3 hours in, of how good life is and how to navigate some of the obstacles that you might. I mean, we talked about it all, but right there, you just said it. If you can accept who you are, broken, full, regardless, like, man, the power in that, the power of acceptance and ownership of where you are. Like, that's probably the theme of the episode has been look, be where you are and own it. Good, bad, ugly, pretty. Like, oh
yeah, man. Hey, what an absolute joy. That,
wow.
it's like I told my daughter last night, the third thing, to thine own self be true. And what a lesson for all of us, right? I'm trying to live it out every day.
This has been like, you put a bow on this with that story. Like, it was like, this was great. It had frosting. It was a beautiful cake, tasty cake. You put some frosting on it, and you just dropped like a bow on it, like just right there.
Well, that's the
Boom.
thing, Andreas. You give
Wow.
people the opportunity to go ahead and share, and I'm honored. I'm honored. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Golly. Well, look, okay, so first of all, I know there's more stories that we probably could tell that you had written down that we're like ready to share. So that just absolutely means we got to get you back at some point. So,
All right,
duh.
I'm in.
Duh. And number two is on my end, like, I'm honored and thank you so much for being on here and sharing such an amazing, like, conversation, and I hope that people who are listening really got a lot of value. If you did, please let us know. We're doing the best we can for you guys, of the fans. This is not about me, this is not about Tony, this is just about making sure that these awesome experiences can be shared in a way that can be valuable to people who are listening. And so I hope you guys are really taking a lot of the out of this, and if you're not, well, at least, well, heck, I'll be richer for the experience regardless. So I'm so happy that that this got to happen. Wow, Tony, thank you so much for being on here. I'm happy that you were on. I'm proud of what you're doing, and I think it's really awesome. If you guys want to get a hold of Tony, maybe get a little bit more of perspective from him. If you want to reach out to him, again, you guys can reach out to www.standing standing STANDINGO as in Oliver
Ovation, standing ovation,
or ovation, standing ovation, right? Standing ovation. So standing O speaker, not ovation, standing O speaker.com. And you can go reach out. That's the website you guys can go to, and really maybe get a hold of him for whatever reasons you might need to, based on what you've heard on today. It's been such a cool episode, man. I mean, I love that I get to do this. I'm privileged to be able to meet some awesome people, and I'm thankful for the team that we have going to be able to bring this to people, as far as our audience and our fans go. Thank you so much for being on here.
It's really my joy. It really is. It's like I say, I've said it before already, but yeah, it's an awesome joy. Not only that you have an opportunity to go ahead and say, let's hear our book field stories, but you open it up for people to get real, and that's a gift. So thanks for sharing that gift, Andres.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
it's my pleasure. It's my privilege. Guys, thank you so much again. If you're listening to this, it's too late to sign up for Bizzler. Columbia Bizzler coming up next year. Be on the lookout for some other people that we have going on season 6. You guys have already heard Tabitha Taylor at this point, and you guys have already heard Harrison Knowles and some amazing Roger Smith, some other amazing book people. Tony Ripley, we had a pleasure being with you. Dustin Hillis is coming up. He'll be towards the end of September, live on the air. But guys, go check out our merch. Go support us, please. If you like what you're hearing, if you like these kinds of things, let us know. Go to Apple Podcast if you're listening there. Leave us a review. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe. We love bringing this to you guys. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be with Tony. Thank you so much, my man. Any last closing thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, I love Ponytails podcast. That's it. I'll just end on that. There you
That's
go.
great. There's a soundbite right there. All right, guys. Well, again, my pleasure. My name is Andres Gamboa. I am the privileged host of the show. We've been with Tony Ripley, spending a couple of 3 hours, but man, that went by so quick. So make sure you guys catch the next one. Thank you so much. Check out our website. Love you guys a lot. Support us if you wish. If not, that's okay too. See you guys.